Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please set our humble obeisances.
That's my humble question. Hare Krishna. Let's begin with the prayer. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padkamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurapishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Sapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashviki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Krishna Bhagwan ki jai, Shri Sukadeva Goswami ki jai, Shri Parikshit Maharaj ki jai, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone. I welcome all of you again for this next session of Bhakti Vaibhava, chapter number 26 of third canto. So before we start this chapter, let's have some revision, some important points which you all remember from the last session. The continuity, the chapter, the point, and whatever. Yes, Lakshmi Mahesh.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, we read about that Karda Muni left for the forest and leaving behind his son Kapildev to take care of the family affairs, and Dehuti Mata took the shelter of the lotus feet of Lord and asked him that to give a knowledge. So, she said that he's like an axe who can cut the attachment of the material existence. And then we learn about that how the yoga and what else we read? That bhakti is like sorry, Mataji. There was one point which I wrote, but I don't know.
No problem. You can remember, and then you can ask. You can tell.
Okay, and yes, and one more thing, that Dehuti Mataji was not in Mahamaya; she was in Yog Maya, as Arjun at the time of the battlefield.
Yes, correct. I would like
everyone. Last thing, Mataji, I want to add that if we are engaged in the devotional services, our mind is engaged in the services of the Lord, then there will be no place for the material garbage in our heart, in our mind.
Yes. Yeah. Place is already filled up, no? So no more place to sit for other person. Yeah. Thank you. Ganga Shakti Mat.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mother Devabhuti had begun her inquiries about attaining liberation in the beginning of the chapter. But we see that by the end of it, she had come to the platform where she was asking what kind of devotional service can be adopted to please the Lord. So the shift from liberation to bhakti, that is that we saw in this chapter is very important.
Yes, exactly. What kind of bhakti can I perform to please the Lord and to achieve His lotus feet? Yeah, good point. Yes, I would request everyone, if possible, it's good if we switch on the video, no? So that we have a good interaction. Rukmani Hari Sevni Mataji.
Mataji, I like two verses so much. Text number 23, Madashya Kathamishta Shivanti Kathayanti Chatapanti Vidastapa Naitan Madgachetasa. So it's like devotees are constantly engaged in chanting and hearing about Krishna. So these devotees do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with the thoughts of pastimes of Krishna. And one more, I really like that verse also, this 25. Satang prasanga mamavira samvido bhavanti hitkarna rasayana kataha. So this is in the association of pure devotees. Discussion of pastime of activities of Krishna is very pleasing and satisfying to ear and heart. So the pastimes and the of Krishna, I was thinking that this is the only way. In the beginning, as we read in the Anode also, the first Kalesha Agni and Shubda. So
Yeah.
first of all, it is like Kalesha Agni, and in later stage we can our heart and ear will be satisfied, and after that we will relish also the Krishna Katha. So I like two verses.
Yeah. And if we continue to follow this, then Shraddha Ratir Bhaktir Anukramishati. Gradually, one will get Nishtha, Ruchi, Bhakti, and Prem. So all these Rati. Yeah, this is an important learning word. Good. Thank you. Anand Leela Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's sort of bit covered, but in the answer, Lord Kapila says that yoga, when it is performed, even with the jnana or any other, it's not complete unless it's performed with bhakti, and towards the end he establishes the supremacy of bhakti, performance of bhakti. And also there's this one shloka where it's said that the stages that we were discussing, it makes us reach to prema. So even though one does not at the stage of prema, but even they can follow the Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, still it's like a positive, you can say a way to move into that ladder, and still that will make one achieve to that goal one day, but consistently following of that process with sincerity. Yeah,
exactly. It is every step is one step ahead towards the Lord. Correct. So we should continue doing our sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Yeah. And Pratipadam Purnamriti Swadana. We get the taste also. Not the complete taste all the time, 24 hours, but little bit we get, and that's the inspiration to move ahead. So, yes, good. Priya Satyabhama Mati.
Mataji, I remember, very distinctly that the qualities of a devotee that we learned, Dikshava, Karunika, and how it helps us grow in our spiritual life and how it's the basis of the same. And one point that struck out for me was that bhakti has everything, jnana and karma. Or you don't need to run after mukti or anything else if you're strict with your sadhana bhakti, and if you're doing it, even if you're not there yet, one day or one lifetime you'll be there. So we don't need to run after that. Our motive should be to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead with our loving devotional service, and that's enough.
Yes. Just follow
you.
the regulations, chanting, reading, the 5 limbs of Bhakti, what Rupa Goswami said, association, Dhamvad, deity worship, everything. And Srila Prabhupada says, if you just follow this, one day you will get up and you'll see you are a pure devotee. So we don't have to wait for that day, but we just keep practicing and it will happen. Yeah, good. Others who have not spoken, any point, what you remember? If you have attended yesterday, attentively. Any single sentence or something, some analogy, some example, some story, whatever you remember. Rasika Priya, Shyam Prabhuji, you unmute.
Yes, Mataji. So I just wanted to add, like when Devhuti approached Kapil Muni for instructions, then Kapil Muni suggested 3 paths: the path of liberation, the path of knowledge, and the path of bhakti.
The 3 paths are, can you repeat, Prabhuji?
The 3 paths are Ashtanga Yoga is one, then another is your bhakti, and another is your liberation. Not liberation, it is Gyan.
Yes. All these 3 will lead to liberation.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, he gave this Adhyatma Yoga, he says, and it has these 3 ways. Okay, good point. Any other? We discussed for 3 hours, I think, at some point. That makes me understand that you are understanding, and I feel encouraged, So that's why it's good to revise always. Yes, Lakshmi Mahesh Mataji, any other point?
Mataji, you told us that bhakti can be attained by association of the devotees of sadhus.
Yes, and there was a beautiful description of characteristics of sadhu and activities of sadhu.
Mercy, tolerance, these are the characteristics.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Rukmani, have you said any, Mataji, some more points you wanted to say?
Mataji, one point. Titikshva Karunika Suvidha Sarvdehina. So, Mataji, in this, I want to say that we are so blessed to see all these qualities in proper disciples right now. When I see them, so it's my also good fortune, and like my Shiksha Guru, my Diksha Guru, both I they are personified of all these qualities. They possess all these qualities, and I don't know when. It's a long journey. I don't know when will I be able to have a little bit of these qualities, but yes, this is the target.
Yeah.
Goal.
Anybody saw that deity? That deity, what we were discussing about, the one who is having a kusha grass in his hand? Remember, there's one verse number 38. There Prabhupada mentions about this deity. So, anybody saw? I will share. We have to quickly move to next chapter, but okay, I will share this. See, Govind Ghosh, Life and Pastimes, Radha Gopinath Temple, Agrazvi. So here are the details. You can go to the story later. Beautiful story. Any other details? There is another picture also. I think this one. Can you see this picture also? Can you see this?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, it's more close up. There's another one also. Okay. Anyway, so this is a beautiful the Shri Radha Gopinath details. Okay, that we spoke about. Manohar Dvija Prabhuji. Yes, I'm happy to hear.
Krishna.
Hare
Everything has been covered already, but I just want to cover the one point which was really, really nice in the verse 15, in which the 2 words were discussed by Srila Prabhupada, which were Guneshu and Chetaha. then when everything depends on our consciousness.
Mhm.
And the consciousness in the material activities, it's all gone. It's all under the, under the direction of material energy, and the consciousness is in the chetaha, is in the Lord's service. Then it's all dependent on our consciousness, that how to control our consciousness and how to put our consciousness in the right path.
Yeah.
That really nice, and then nice learning from that. And otherwise, everything has been covered, all the devotees, very nicely. Thank you so much, Mataji, for the really nice, a really nice, detailed, verse by verse, conversation you did yesterday. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. So this 15th verse, what you spoke about, the main point is the pivot is the mind.
Yeah.
The main thing, the pivot is the mind. When mind is attached to these gunas, then it will cause bondage. But when it is attached to the Supreme Lord, then it will give liberation. So mind is the pivot. That's the starting what you were speaking. It's a very good shloka, yeah, no doubt. And it is just mind actually. Every day we go through many instances and experiences. Yesterday one Mataji called, and some brahmachari gave her my number, and she wanted some guidance. So I never met her, but she called. This is regarding mind, so I'm just I just recalled. So yesterday afternoon she called, and she was in very desperate, very depressed, very frustrated, very sad. In-laws are not there. One after another died. Father died for some reason. Mother is there, but she has limited energy to support her. Husband comes to the temple, so he is good in front of everyone, but he is not good actually. He is having many psychic and other things. So she was telling, I cannot go to any relatives. I cannot tell any relatives about my detail, what is happening. They call me, but I have to say lie. So what should I do? I cannot tell the things what's happening, and I cannot tell lie also. So what should I do? And she has a son also, 21 years old. So and she's chanting 16 rounds, and in Ekadashi she's 32, and in between sometimes for very auspicious day 64 also. And her husband, I didn't ask about, but he comes to the temple and he is in some guidance also. So now we spoke for 1 hour, something like that, and slowly she was telling about herself, any details. But then her son also in between was depressed, looking at father and mother in such a condition. His father does not give anything to run the house. He kept another room where he keeps all his FDs and the checks and cash and everything, and he has other marital other relationships. His character is not good, and so many things she shared. All bad habits. She said, what should I do? Manavuli, if you can get help from somebody so that, from your relatives, so that you can explain and somebody can tell her, no, not possible. There's no one like that. And then we spoke many things on philosophy and practical aspects and this and that. And at the end, she was so happy. Our conclusion was, see, anyway, even if we have good relatives and good friends and good family, one day we have to get detached, because this is our philosophy. This is all temporary. So not finding any solution in the world, I thought it's a good sign for from Krishna, that you can be detached. You can be detached from now on. Just do your duty. Don't worry about this. Just be happy and just stand your ground and take care of your things. If the relatives are calling, if you can go sometime, go with any reason. If you are not able to go anyway, the relatives are not of any help, because they're not helping in your this precarious situation. So even if you maintain the relations, what gain you will get, So sometimes go, sometimes don't go. You tell the reason why your husband is not coming. Oh, it's whatever. You tell reason according to the situation, according to the person, but just focus on your spirituality, because that is at the end, Krishna never leaves. So I just presented the philosophy, and she understood. Oh yes, I said you are fortunate, more fortunate than those who have good relatives and good husbands. Why? Because they will be attached. it's difficult for them to get the detachment, you know. So it's good in one way that you will have detachment faster. He said, oh yeah, then I will reach to the Lord faster. And that clicked somehow, you know. And then she was so happy. So it is just the mind. Mind is the pivot. The situation was the same, the husband was the same, children, situation, her health, everything was same. Sometimes she used to take this depression medicines also, go to psychiatrist also, you know, to get some advice and all. But then just 1 hour discussion and she got completely pacified. So what Prabhuji said, no? 15th verse, mind is the pivot. We have to train the mind. Situation will not change. Let's change our perspective. Whatever we have got, you know, we hear this always. If we have a capacity to change the situation, we should try our best to change. But if we cannot change, accept it. Accept it positively that this is best for me. And once we have taken shelter of Krishna, once we are chanting, Krishna is our, you know, caretaker. He has taken the charge. Rest assured, whatever will happen will be for our good. We cannot understand, you know. Example is like we have this frame. In earlier days, we used to do the embroidery. So outside it looks so beautiful, but if you turn it around, there are a lot of threads and knots and things here and there going. You know, it's not beautiful. So what you want to see? You want to see the front or you want to see the back? So just be happy seeing the front. There are miseries, there are people, there are relatives you can't change. Her situation was really bad. You know? So this is just example. The mind.
I will also add. Sorry, I disturbed. Sorry very much.
Yeah,
please,
mind
please
is the cause of one's bondage and one's liberation in the same situation. So important. Yes, Prabhuji, you can tell.
Very nicely explained, Mataji. But you know, I would also add one thing, that even the material books, which you know, a very nice book by Viktor Frankl, that is Man's Search for Meaning. It was in the Nazi camp, and he tried to concentrate on consciousness. It was a very nice, you know, example of if we concentrate our consciousness on one thing, even in the baddest situation we can put our consciousness in the right way. So yes, very nicely, you know, explained by a very nice analogy. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So main concentration for us is the Supreme Lord. You know, then we start developing the connection, and that's how all other problems are taken care of. You know, even though the problem is still there, that we raise our consciousness, so we are not affected by those problems or those pains or those diseases or whatever situation. So good. Let's move ahead to chapter number 26. I mean, there are many things I remember which we discussed, like 3 kinds of reasons where one does not get satisfaction in the beginning itself. 3 kinds of reasons of which one does not get satisfaction. So what category the Ronak Rishis are. So anyway, now I know you all remember, but it's just, you know, many points we can share. Let's move to 26th verse. We have 26th chapter. We have 72 verses today, and that is our target. So this chapter starts with the question what Devhuti asked already in 25th chapter, verse number 29. So 29 is the verse full of questions, and the answers would be in chapter 26, 27, 28. So she asked about Gyan Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga to compare, to get completely convinced I will do Bhakti, but I want to know, you know, understand other things also. So she asked, what is the subject matter of Jnani? And Kapil Dev answers by giving her the Sankhya philosophy, the analytical study between matter and spirit, and the characteristics of different elements, gross and subtle. So fundamental principles of material nature. This is the topic of this chapter. So let's begin. Text 1.
Hare Krishna. So should I read the text or just the translation?
Also, yes, Sanskrit, yes.
Sorry?
Sanskrit word and then translation.
Okay. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha अथा ते सम्प्रवक्ष्यामि तत्त्वानां लक्षणं पृथक् यद् विदित्वा विमुच्येत पुरुषः प्रकृतिर्गुणैः. The personality of Godhead, Kapila continued, My dear mother, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of the Absolute Truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of the modes of material nature.
Yes. So Lord Kapil Dev continued, My dear mother, I shall describe you unto the different categories of the absolute truth, knowing which person can be released from the influence of the modes of material nature. So this is the first benefit. We just discussed mind who is attached to the three gunas is the cause of bondage. So here he is telling, I will tell you all these things, all this, describe you different categories of absolute truth, knowing which a person can be released from these gunas, released from these modes of material nature. So Kapil Dev, yesterday also we discussed in the book or in any experiment, we say the aim first, and then all the detailed description and experiment and method and whatever we need, etc. And then again the conclusion. So in our language, prayojan first. What you will get? Love of God. Like that, And then the process. So first it is said the sambandh and the prayojan, and then abhideya, the process of achieving that. So because Kapil Dev also here first starts by giving the prayojan, because only when one knows the prayojan, that is the inspiration, the motivation to do it, to do something. Okay, this is the result I will get. So because only when one knows the prayojan, one gets the inspiration to practice that. It is to know, to do, and to be. To know means sambandha gyan. Who am I? Who is God? What is my relationship? It is to know, sambandha gyan. And then to do what all things I need to do, rules and regulations and practices and this is abhideya. And then the result, to be, is prayojan, to get that love of Godhead. So, so in all subjects, mainly the sambandh and prayojan are given first, which gives the inspiration to do the abhideya. Otherwise, one never gets the impetus or inspiration to perform the abhideya. So here he is telling, I will tell you all these things, knowing that one will be released from the three gunas. Because hearing about these subject matters, one can understand. Anything we do with proper understanding helps us to not just say something, but also say with the feeling. Not just do something, but do something with the feeling, with emotions, with our heart in it. So if you hear this, understand this clearly, that how these material elements work, what are its symptoms, and what are its nature, then you will understand you are not any one of these. So it's easy for you to understand you as a spirit soul. And that's how you will be free from gunas. So that is the benefit of this Sankhya Yoga given by Kapil Dev, who is trying to now explain. So preliminary studies of devotional service have already been explained in the previous chapter. Now the analytical study of devotional service will be explained by the Lord. So Prabhupada is writing this. Who says that by such an analytical study, one becomes free from the modes of material nature? So this is the highlighting point here. By knowing this, we become free from these modes. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, even a devotee should be inquisitive to know about these other paths. Oh, we don't have to do with Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, or Sankara. No, we should know. Even a devotee should know or should be inquisitive to know about these other paths properly, not with the desire to follow that path. Not with the desire to follow that path, but for the basic fundamental understanding. Basic fundamental understanding. As much as described in Srimad Bhagavatam. So for that basic fundamental understanding, we don't have to go and search all the Vedas and Upanishads and other things. As much as given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Whatever is required for us to know, to have the proper understanding so that we can follow our bhakti nicely, it is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we need not endeavor to understand more than what it is given already in Bhagavatam. Whatever is given here is enough. So at least, for sure, we don't have to go to other scriptures to understand Sankhya Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, but at least we should understand what is given in Srimad Bhagavatam nicely. Even if it is Sankhya Yoga or Jnana or Ashtanga, whatever, we have to understand it, given in whatever is given in Bhagavatam. So, as long as one has even a slight desire to enjoy or lord it over material nature, as long as one has even a slight desire to enjoy, to control the material nature, there is no chance of his being free from the material mode. So that last desire also should go. Therefore, one has to understand the Supreme Lord analytically, as explained by the Sankhya system of philosophy by Lord Kapila Dev. So Srila Prabhupada says here, Sankhya is analytical study of devotional service. He says like that only. Srila Prabhupada. So now second word. Let's go.
Jnanam nishchaya sarthaya purushasya darshanam yat ahur varnaye tatte hridaya granthi bhedanam. Knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. I shall explain that knowledge unto you by which the knots of attachment to the material world are cut.
Yes, I have not shared the screen. No, just a minute. I will share the screen also. So we have all these points. Yeah. This is chapter 26, and this is our verse 1 and 2. So first is one is free from mode, and then he attains perfection and cut knots of attachment. So knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. I shall explain that knowledge unto you by which the knots of attachment to the material world are cut. So Prabhupada writes, knowledge leads one to attain the ultimate perfection. So whatever knowledge is required for us to do bhakti and attain that perfection, it is given here. So we should understand it simply by understanding one's spiritual position or by seeing oneself as he is, one can be free from material entanglement. And how can we attain this knowledge? By hearing from the proper source, right source. Here Kapil Dev, and for us, Guru Parampara. So Kapil Dev is the greatest authority because he is the personality of Godhead. And if someone accepts whatever is explained as it is without any mixing or interpretation, then he can see himself. He can understand this nicely. And true knowledge is, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, we are the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. Jiva Swarupa Krishna Nityadas. And when one has understood this, that he is a part and parcel, and being the part and parcel, it's his eternal position to serve, to be a servant, then he becomes self-realized. So, and then the verse says, Hriday Granthi Bhedanam. Hriday Granthi, the knots in the heart can be cut. So, Vidyate Hriday Granthi Siddhyante Sarva Sanshaya. So, this false ego, when one is freed from this false ego by cultivation of real knowledge, he sees himself. And that is the ultimate necessity of human life. That is self-realization. So false identification. False ego means false identification. False identification means thinking yourself to be this gross and subtle body. So liberation means yesterday. What is the yesterday definition of liberation in respect to the gross and subtle body? Anybody remember? Liberation means with respect to gross and subtle body, there is something they said.
The subtle body gets dissolved?
Ah, yes. Perfect. That's what I wanted. The subtle body gets dissolved. That means you become free from the gross and subtle both. That is liberation. Good. So, as we were discussing, sometimes we think there are so much descriptions about material elements. What is the need of understanding what is the nature of water? What is the, this is all we read in our subject chemistry, like H2O and, the characteristics and all those things. So this is not a book of material science. This is a book of spiritual science. So when it is given here, those things, it's important for us to know. The point is, if you want to, understand clearly what is this body, what Prabhupada speaks about always, we are not this body, and we are always thinking we are this body, I am this. So what is that body? So if we understand it clearly, then we will be able to understand, no, I am separate from body. So by hearing from the right source, we will be able to Atma Darshanam and Hriday Granthis Vedanam. Both will happen. Self-realization and cutting the knot of this attachment. So the Sankhya, although it will give theoretical understanding of how the living entity should not be identifying with the gross or subtle body, because there's always a difference between the living entity himself as a spirit soul and the gross body and the subtle body. There's a difference. So thus, the living entity should not be identifying with the matter, at least by knowing this, because there's a difference between matter and spirit. So that is the subject matter of this chapter. This whole chapter aims at understanding this basic point. So now next verse, number 3, we will see. So far we have seen there are these benefits of understanding this subject matter. First, freedom from mode. Second, attains perfection. Third, cuts the knot of attachment. Right? We see in these 2 verses. So let's see the third verse.
Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Soul, and He has no beginning. He is transcendental to the material modes of nature and beyond the existence of this material world. He is perceivable everywhere because He is self-effulgent, and by His self-effulgent luster, the entire creation is maintained.
Yes. So here he starts the description. The first thing here is the characteristics of Purusha, the third word. The Supreme Personality of God is the Supreme Soul, the Purusha. And he has no beginning, Anadi. Anadir Atma Purusho. He is the transcendental to the modes, Nirguna. Nirgun means he does not have gun. This is not correct. No? Nirgun actually means he is not attached or he is not bound by the 3 modes. He is transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature. Prakrute Param, he is beyond the existence of this material world. And he is perceivable everywhere. Paraha, he is perceivable everywhere because he is self-effulgent. Swayam Jyoti, it's written here. Pratyak Dhama, Pratyak Dham is, he is present everywhere. And Swayam Jyoti, he is self-effulgent. No light, no sun, no moon is required. Self-effulgent. And by his self-effulgent luster, the entire creation is manifested. All other light is coming from his effulgence, basically. So, in this chapter, basically, we will see the characteristics of many different things, starting from the Supreme Lord Purusha, and then Prakriti and Jiva and other things. So, time factor and all the 24 elements. So, here it is the characteristics of Purusha, the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada says, the sunlight is perceived everywhere, even within the room or in the sky. But the small light is experienced within a specific limit. Similarly, our consciousness is perceived within the limit of this particular body. But the super consciousness is perceived everywhere. He is present everywhere by his energy. So if I switch on my light in the night, it will give light to my room. It will not give light to Ganga Shakti Mataji's room in Delhi. Right? So this is his telling. This is limited. The small light is experienced within a specific limit. Similarly, our consciousness is perceived, my consciousness is perceived only within this body. But the super consciousness or existence of God is perceived everywhere. The sunlight is everywhere. But this small light, tube light, or whatever light is only in this room. So similarly, this consciousness is only within this body, but supremely consciousness of the super consciousness, the existence of God is perceived everywhere by his different energies. So the materialistic or atheistic theory states that there is no soul or there is no God, and that consciousness is the result of combination of matter. This theory is unacceptable, that everything is matter. Or this body is functioning because of matter. It is wrong. Matter is not beginningless. It has a beginning. Everything has a beginning and end. As material body has a beginning, the universal body also. Universal body of the Lord, this Virat Roop, is not eternal, right? It manifests and then it unmanifests. It is not eternal. Other forms, other avatars, Nrsimha avatar, this and all, they are all eternal. But universal form is not eternal. And as our material body has begun on the basis of our soul, our material body has begun on the basis of our soul. The soul is there, so the material body starts growing, and now we are so much grown up. Similarly, the entire gigantic universal body has begun on the basis of that supreme soul. So that supreme Purusha. So that's what this verse talks about. The characteristics of Purusha, where there is self-effulgent light, which is coming from the Lord. There's no need of sunlight or moonlight or electricity. So this is verse number 3. Let's go to verse number 4. Interaction with Prakriti is the Supreme Lord's pastime. So how the Lord interacts with Prakriti is verse 4. Yeah.
Prakritiim Sukshma Daivim Gunamayim Vibhuh Yadrachyayevo Bhagatam Abhyapadyata Leelaya. Translation: as his pastime, that supreme personality of Godhead, the greatest of the great, accepted the subtle material energy which is invested with three material modes of nature and which is related to Vishnu.
Yes. Daivim means the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Daivim means belonging to the Supreme Lord. That means she has a master. She is not independent, not alone. So this Prakriti, Sukshma Daivim, it is said. Why it is said Sukshma, will see. So this verse says how this Lord interacts with Prakriti. So this he does as his pastime. As his pastime. Purusha, interaction with Prakriti is just a pastime by his sweet will. By his sweet will. He is Parat, he is independent. He does it by his will. So here the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purusha, we see, all the expansions from Krishna only. But then this Mahavishnu or Karnodaksha Vishnu, he plans and then he impregnates the Prakriti. And then what is this nature of the Prakriti is given here? Gunamayi. Gunamayi is made of the gunas. And Sukshmam Devim Gunamayi Vibhu. So the Prakriti is called Sukshma. Sukshma means subtle. So Sukshma does not mean here very Sukshma means very, 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 in normal terms, Sukshma means very small. The Sukshma here is there are many other contexts we can use this word also. So in the subtle form, the Sukshma here is subtle. Prabhupada is translating Sukshma means subtle. Sukshma is not very small but subtle. So I will use one analogy which will help to understand many concepts for today, in today's different verses. So we have seen milk. With milk, we make sandesh, peda, paneer, rasmalai, rasgulla, many other things. But when we see milk, we cannot see all these items. But by certain process, we can get that Peda or Sandesh or whatever. So milk is a subtle form of Peda. Milk is a subtle form of Sandesh. It has not yet manifested, but by certain process, it will come, right? So just for understanding, we will use this thing in our future verses also. So milk is a subtle form of all these things. Milk has everything inside, paneer, peda, whatever. So when there is, like, say, 20 liters of milk, we cannot see what is it, or what we are going to make. Maybe 5 liters will make peda, 2 liters will make paneer, 6 liters will make sandesh, whatever. It will come, later. So here 20 liters or 10 liters, whatever you see, is sukshma or subtle form of all those things, peda, paneer, sandesh. So that's why here it is the sukshma devim gunamai vibhu. See, when the Lord glances, then slowly, we have seen in detail, and here also some description will come. After glancing, then the activation of modes and other things starts working, right? Otherwise, everything was inactive. So therefore, this sukshma word is used, and then he does all this still by his sweet will. So Leelaya as his pastime. Yeah, here Prabhupada explains that, all of a sudden people say that, there may appear a big cloud in the sky, and the cloud is perceived in two ways. To the sun, the cloud is a creation of its energy, but to the ordinary common man in the conditioned state, it's covering to his eyes. Cloud covers the sun. Sun is sun only, it's not get covered. Because of the cloud, the sun cannot be seen. It is not that the sun is actually covered by the cloud. Only our vision is covered, so we are not able to see the sun. So those conditioned souls who are covered by this, the covering of this material energy, they are not able to see the Lord. So they are conditioned, therefore they are called conditioned. So Vyasdev, by his spiritual vision, saw the Supreme Lord and the material energy standing behind him. In some place in Bhagavatam, in the first canto, 7th chapter, it is mentioned here. So this indicates that material energy cannot cover the Lord. She was standing behind him. Another good point. Huh? The last paragraph beginning. A beautiful description that, again, wherever there is Lord, there is no darkness. Wherever there is light, there is no darkness. That is the point he is trying to explain. So basically, the Lord interacts with Prakriti by his sweet will, just as a pastime. That is the thing. Now, text number 5. 5 to 7 is Jiva bewildered, seeing this variety of things, and he considers himself as the doer, and that makes him, bound. So these are the 3 verses, 5, 6, 7. Let's read. 5th one.
Mataji, I have a question from this verse. Can I ask?
Yes, please.
Mataji, in purport, Prabhupada writes, the energy emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests in 2 ways, as an emanation from Supreme Lord and as a covering of the Lord's face. So, could you please explain, because I'm sure one of these is Brahma Jyoti, but which one's the other, and I'm really confused between the 2.
Yeah, no problem. When the material energy of the Supreme Lord appears, this Gunamai energy acts as a manifestation of the energies of the 3 modes, and it acts as a covering. So this material energy with the 3 modes acts as a covering to the jiva. Those who take shelter of material energy, they are influenced by the 3 modes, and they cannot see the Supreme Lord then, they cannot approach. The energy emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests in 2 ways, as an emanation from the Supreme Lord and as a covering of the Lord's face. So these 2 energies are basically Yogmaya and Mahamaya. In one sense, we can understand this. So emanation from the Supreme Lord, where we take shelter of the Supreme Lord, then the Yogmaya works. We have the access of the Supreme Lord. We serve him with our senses and other things. And covering of the Lord's face, that means it's a material energy where we want to enjoy, we want to become the leader, we want to become the Purusha, then the energy, the material energy. Lord sends us here and covers. That's the next 3 verses is talking about this thing, we'll understand. The covering of the Lord's face means we want to become Purusha. Okay, Lord sends us here. Go, try it. So the Lord gets covered in the sense that's what this example is given. Na? The sun is not influenced by the cloud, but in our vision, we are not able to see the sun. So that is what, right, Mataji?
Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So next three verses makes it more clear because the jiva's characteristics are described here. How the prakriti interacts with jiva. So let's read fifth one.
The shloka and the translation, both, Mataji, just the translation?
Both.
Both. Guner vichitra sujatam sarupa prakritim praja vilokayam muhe sadhya sa iha jnana guhya. Translation: divided into varieties by her threefold modes, material nature creates the forms of living entities, and the living entities, seeing this, are illusioned by the knowledge covering feature of the illusionary energy.
Yes. So living entities, seeing this, are illusioned by the knowledge covering feature of the illusionary energy. So knowledge covering feature of the illusionary energy, this avidya potency basically. Knowledge covering feature is this avidya potency. Jnana guhaya, the knowledge covering feature. So the living entities observing these various products offered by Prakriti, so many things, which includes his gross body, his subtle body, earth, air, water, fire, ether, everything, he gets bewildered. The jiva has the desire to enjoy, right? To enjoy separately from Krishna. So Krishna, as a loving father, he facilitates. He does not want to force the living entity. No, you come to me only, come and serve me only, So he employs this Mahamaya to facilitate the whole thing. What happens? Jiva desires, Supreme Lord sanctions, and material energy facilitates. That's how the system works. Jiva has this material desire, Purusha, the Supreme Lord, sanctions those material desires, and Prakriti facilitates those material desires. So here, Jiva has the desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. So Krishna facilitates it. He employs Mahamaya to facilitate the whole thing, because Jiva wants to enjoy separately from Krishna. So Mahamaya divides herself in three parts, just for our understanding: Pradhan, Vidya, and Avidya. Pradhan offers all the possible ingredients, dravya, the vastu, needed for the living entity to try to enjoy separate from the Supreme Lord. So she provides all the dravya, the ingredients, so that we can use them and enjoy separately from Krishna. Second is Avidya. Avidya potency ensures that he enjoys it without guilt. Avidya, usko cover kar deti hai, taki we can enjoy. If we know, then we will not be able to enjoy nicely. If we know everything belongs to Krishna and he is the supreme enjoyer and this and that, we can never enjoy. There is no hope of any enjoyment if we know all those things. Therefore, this avidya potency covers our real knowledge, because we wanted to enjoy, right? And avidya potency creates that hope in the form of making us identify with the gross and subtle body, with the gross and subtle elements here, and giving us false hope that yes, you wanted to enjoy alone, separate from Krishna. Okay, you try, you enjoy, try it out. And then third is Vidya potency. So Vidya potency is which tells us, in our previous classes we were discussing Vidya and Avidya. So Vidya is this material knowledge. Avidya is this material ignorance or material darkness. So Vidya potency tells us, look, you wanted to enjoy, you're not able to get that happiness. You're not able to enjoy. So look, this is not possible. Reality is that you cannot be happy here. This is Vidya potency, telling us. So slowly, it gives an opportunity to a living entity to rectify or to improve his desires. So this Vidya and Avidya potency is compared to the darkness, light and the darkness. Vidya means light and Avidya means darkness. So when there is sunlight, we can see everything as they are. When there is sunlight, that means when there is Vidya, we perceive things that exist and we don't perceive things that don't exist. Very clear. We see things that exist, that is there, and we don't see things that is not there in the light. And Avidya potency means darkness. So in the dark, we don't see things that are there, or we perceive things that are not there, and we don't perceive things that are there. I was giving this example. When we go in the dark, even if there is no thief, or even if there is no snake, we feel like, oh, there might be snake, there might be thief, because it's dark, we are afraid, so we think there might be somebody. And even if there is something on the street, let's say street breaker, but we can't see because it's dark. So in the dark, we perceive things which are not there, and we don't perceive things which are there. So this is Vidya and Avidya. So here, divided into varieties of a threefold mode, material nature creates the forms of living entities, and living entities, seeing all this, are illusions by the knowledge covering feature of the illusory energy. So material energy has the power to cover knowledge, but this covering can cover only the conditioned living entity, not the Supreme Lord. So this covering cannot be applied to the Supreme Lord. It is applicable only to the praja, or those who are born with this material body, the conditioned soul, not the Lord. So this energy is acting on the conditioned souls who are covered by material energy. So there are two classes of men, Prabhupada says, those who are obedient to the laws of Supreme Lord, and those who are not, those who are atheists, those who are not obedient, those who don't accept the existence of Lord. There are two kinds of people, So some of the living entities revolt against the laws of the Lord, and such entities are conditioned souls. And because they are conditioned by the three modes of material nature, Gunair Vichitra here are used, Gunair, Vichitra, Sujatim, Sarupa, Prakriti, Praja. Vilokya Mumuhe Sangha Sa Iya Jnana Bhuyaya. So because of this knowledge covering feature, the conditioned souls are illusion. And what happens by illusion? Illusion means misidentification with the body. What happens? Jiva thinks he is the doer. That is next word, sixth word. So let's read sixth one.
Evam parabhidhyaneन kartvam prakarte puman karmashu priyamaneshu guner atmani manyate.
Yeah, very
Translation. Because of his forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of material energy as his field of activities, and thus actuated, he wrongly applies the self-activity to himself.
He wrongly applies the activities to himself. There is a similar verse in Bhagavad Gita. He thinks himself as a doer. Anybody remember that? He thinks himself as a doer, which are actually carried out by the material nature. How does it start with? Exactly. Thank you. So because of this misidentification, Jiva thinks he is the doer, which are in actuality carried by material nature. Karmasu kriyamaneshu guner atmani manyate. Guner atmani manyate. So kartavyam, kartatvam prakrite puman, which are in actuality carried out by material nature. So the forgetful living entity can be compared to a man who is under the influence of the disease. जब कोई disease में होता है, he becomes mad, and a man, he becomes mad, or to a man haunted by a ghost who acts without control and thinks himself he is the controller. It is very clearly seen by a normal person that he is getting controlled by somebody else, but he is thinking I am the controller. So this happens to the jiva, because of misidentification, he thinks I am the doer. When a person is not acting in Krishna consciousness, he is understood to be acting in material consciousness. Consciousness is eternal. It cannot be killed, but it can be dovetailed, it can be purified. So the material consciousness simply has to be purified. That's what Prabhupada says. So the fifth verse says that he gets illusioned by these three modes and the products of this material energy. And then because of his illusion of misidentifying with his body, he thinks he is the doer. And because of this misconception, he basically gets into repeated birth and death cycle. So that's verse number 8. 7, sorry, 7. Yeah, read.
तदस्य संस्थे बन्धः परा तन्त्र्यं च तत्कृतं भवत्य अकृत ईशस्य साक्षिणो निवर्तात्मनः. Material consciousness is the cause of one's conditional life, in which conditions are enforced upon the living entity by the material energy. Although the spirit soul does not do anything and is transcendental to such activities, he is thus affected by conditional life.
Exactly. Nivrittatmana. Nivrittatmana is joyful by nature. So by nature, the living entity, the jiva, is Nivrittatmana. That means he is Satchidanand. He is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. He is Satchidanand. By his nature, he is, he is supremely blissful. He is eternal. But he has to go in this samsara again and again. Punarapi janani jatare shanam, Again and again, he is born and suffers again and again. Because he is considering himself as a doer, because he is misidentifying himself as the body, the gross and the subtle. So this misconception leads the jiva for bondage in this material world, again and again, repeated birth and death. Although he is sakshino, akartur. Akartur means jiva is not the doer, and sakshina is the witness. So jiva is the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So he should not, or he need not be controlled by the Prakriti. But he has developed self-created dependence on Prakriti by identifying with it. By nature, he is joyful. He is Nivrittatmana. But he has created or developed this self-created dependence on Prakriti by identifying with those modes and those elements. Actually, so he is Ishaya. It's written here, in the word. Bhavati akurtar Ishaya. Ishasya means independent, as he is the part and parcel of Supreme Lord. But because he identifies with Prakriti, he is suffering. He is bound. So he's bound and he's taking repeated birth and death. So although the spirit soul does not do anything and is transcendental to such activities, he's affected by the conditioned life. So this is how, jiva bewilders, seeing all this variety, then he considers himself as the doer, and that leads to the bondage. Okay, let's go to next verse number 8.
Before going to 8, if I can ask a question on 7th verse.
Yes, Mataji.
Here, we mentioned, jiva identifies himself with the Prakriti. What does that actually mean? Like, when we are also saying that he himself thinks himself to be the doer, then identifying himself, are these two separate, or they are synonym, or
yeah, they are the symptoms, or they are the characteristics of a situation where he has forgot the Lord. He wanted to become Purusha. He wanted to enjoy separate from Krishna. So Krishna has sent his ear, and because of avidya potency, because he wanted to enjoy, so he has given all these facilities. So these two things, what you said is, he thinks as a doer, because he is not identifying himself as a servant of the Lord, because that's how the situation he has got because of his desire. And second, what you said is, he is not a doer. And second, what you said, the second point?
Identifies himself with the Prakriti.
He identifies himself with the Prakriti, with his body. Vita Prakriti means with his gross and subtle body. Because that provides him the facility to enjoy separate from Krishna. So it's the same thing. He's enjoying separately from Krishna, thinking himself as a doer, and enjoying using these gross and subtle senses or elements. Okay, thanks, Mataji. So verse number 8. Whose turn?
Karyaka, should I read or?
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
कार्यकारणकर्तृत्वे कारणं प्रकृतिं विदु भोक्तृवे सुखदुःखानां पुरुषं प्रकृते परम्. The cause of the conditioned soul's material body and senses, and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. This is understood by learned man. The feelings of happiness and distress of the soul, who is transcendental by nature, are caused by the spirit soul himself.
Yeah. So from 3 to 8, Kapil Dev talks about nature of Purusha, Prakriti, Jiva, the Supreme Lord, Prakriti, how it acts by sweet will as a pastime, and how the Jiva, functions. This we saw. And there are these different other elements. So now in this section, next, we see how these other elements are described. So here, Karya, Karana, Kartrutve, the body is the Karya, Karana, the senses, and Kartrutve regarding the demigods. So the cause of the conditioned soul's material body and senses, and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, in the material nature. This is understood by a learned man. The feelings of happiness and distress of the soul are caused by the spirit soul himself. So, whatever body we get, we are the cause. Whatever actions we do, accordingly we get the body, of our previous lifetimes and previous times, So cause of Jiva actions. So Prakriti facilitates, but based on our desires and our karma, we get a different body. So that body is not received according to his own choice, but because of his earlier, karma and desires. In other words, the conditioned soul has no free choice. He has to accept a certain type of body according to his karma. जो एग्जाम में लिखा है उतना ही मार्क्स आएगा. You cannot choose मुझे 98 दे दो. According to his karma. But when there are bodily reactions as felt in happiness and distress, it is to be understood that the cause is the spirit soul himself. He is doing things, So he is creating his, future things. What he is doing, he will get that happiness or distress, Living entity is the cause of his own suffering, but he can also be the cause of his eternal happiness by dovetailing things according to the scriptures. Thus, it is his free choice. So we are controlled also, but at the same time, we have some small little free will to accept a spiritual body or a material body. How do we act? It depends on that. So when there is enforced acceptance for suffering, it is not a pastime. So one cannot say in the material realm that I'm doing this pastime, I'm the Supreme Lord, but in my pastime, I'm acting like this. I'm getting this suffering, or I'm getting this or that. No, this is not a pastime. In the enforced, it is in the conditioned state, we cannot say it's my pastime. The Lord's pastime and the conditioned living entity's acceptance of karmic reaction are not on the same level. Lord is Swarat, independent, and he does it by his sweet will. But conditioned souls get this because of their karmic reaction. भगवान इस नमाम कर्माणि लिम्पन्ते न मे कर्म फलास्था. भगवान को कोई काम करने की इच्छा नहीं है, न तो कोई कर्म करने की जरूरत है, न तो कोई कर्म कर रहे हैं क्योंकि फल की इच्छा है, ऐसा भी नहीं है. But for the living entity, all these things apply. Anyway, so now Devahuti asked a question. So I will share another screen because there it is more detailed given, The ninth question, if we see, describe characteristics of Prakriti and Purusha. That is question number 3, what Devahuti answers. And there is a whole lot of description of all these things, Pradhan, means all the elements, time, and things like that. So let's go in detail. I will share the detailed screen. And somebody can read verse number 9.
देवहूतिरुवाच प्रकृते पुरुषस्यापि लक्षणं पुरुषोत्तम ब्रूहि कारणयोरस्य सदा सच्च यदात्मकम्. Devahuti said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, kindly explain the characteristics of the Supreme Person and his energies, for both of these are the causes of this manifest and unmanifest creation.
Yes, so this is our question. Devahuti's question. Kindly explain, describe about the characteristics of Prakriti and Purusha. So she wants to know more detail, Prakriti is connected with both the Supreme Lord and the living entities. Right? So Prakriti is Supreme Lord's energy and acting under through Supreme Lord's direction to bewilder us, to engage us, to fulfill our desire of lording over, material nature or enjoying our sense gratification, whatever. So Prakriti is connected with the Lord and the living entity both, just as a woman is connected with her husband as a wife and with her children as a mother. The product of that relationship is stated to the manifest and unmanifested material world. The unmanifested material world is the subtle Mahatattva, and from the Mahatattva, the material manifestation has emerged. So, unmanifest stage and manifest stage. The woman is like the material nature. Unmanifest stage, she is present as Pradhan. And then Lord, when glances, she starts manifesting these elements. So a woman, in unmanifest stage and then manifest stage, producing children, something like this. So the product of that relationship is stated to the manifest and unmanifest material world. The unmanifest material world is a subtle Mahatattva, subtle because everything is homogeneous. It's not differentiated yet. Like I gave the example of milk. It is just milk right now. Later, it will get transformed to many different things. So this state is unmanifested state, and when it gets transformed to Peda, Sandesha, and other things, that is the manifest state, right? From the Mahat Tattva, the material manifestation has emerged. From that milk, other things get emerged like that. So, okay. So, Kapil Dev, Prabhupada has written this. An analogy may be made with the father and mother. The mother and the father exist, but sometimes the mother begets children. So material nature is ever existing, and the Lord is the supreme cause for both the subtle and the gross manifestations of this material world. So Kapil Dev here is going to answer this question. He's going to speak in detail about this material nature as being the cause of manifested material world. This material nature, or the mother is the cause of child. This material nature is the cause of manifested material world. He's going to explain like this, and at the end, he will say about Supreme Lord is the ultimate cause of this material world. So mother is the cause of birth of a child, but Supreme Lord or the Father is the ultimate cause, like that. So he will start beginning his speaking about the details about material nature as being the cause of this manifested material world. And at the end, in the last section, he will speak that Supreme Lord is the ultimate cause of this material world. So this is about the whole chapter. So let's go to verse number 10. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Bhagavan Yatta Trigunam Avyaktam Nityam Sat Asat Atmakam Pradhanam Prakritim Praha Avishesham Visheshavat. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the unmanifested eternal combination of the three modes is the cause of the manifest state and is called Pradhan. It is called Prakriti when in the manifest stage of existence.
Yeah. So I hope it is getting clear. The unmanifested eternal combination of the three modes is the cause of manifest state and is called Pradhan. See, thanks to our acharyas who have explained this. Otherwise, it is just impossible to understand all these complex things. No? But now it has become easy because of our acharyas. The unmanifested eternal combination of the three modes is the cause of manifest state, and that is called Pradhan. It is called Prakriti when it is in the manifest stage of existence. So when it is unmanifested state, it is called Pradhan. And when it is in the manifested state, it is called Prakriti. And simple to understand. And it is written here, Avishesham Visheshavat. Avishesham means undifferentiated. The milk form. We cannot differentiate what is what or what will be used for what. And later, after processing, differentiate. It's a possessing differentiation. So Avishesham Visheshavat. Right? So Prakriti is called here Avyakta. Initially, it is Avyakta. We cannot differentiate what is what. So Prakriti is called Avyakta here. Yat yat trigunam Avyaktam. Because even though it is Visheshavat, even though potentially Prakriti has all kinds of varieties, but at the unmanifested stage, it is Avyakta. The varieties are not manifested yet. So it is in the unmanifested stage. Isliye Avyakta. Yat tat trigunam. When the three gunas are inactive, that is the unmanifested stage. So in detail, we have learned this in Canto 2 actually, that when the Lord glances, till that time, it is in the Pradhan stage. All the modes are inactive. And in that inactive stage, we cannot differentiate. Differentiation has not yet started. Therefore, it is that stage is called undifferentiated, avishesham. Right? It is only some one homogeneous, state. So that is present in that pradhan, right? So even though that is homogeneous state, unmanifested state, but potentially everything is there. Like milk is a homogeneous state, potentially all the peda and sandesh and paneer is there, but it is in the unmanifested state. So even though that homogeneous pradhan has all kinds of varieties in it, so everything is there, but it is not yet manifested. Okay, so Pradhan stage, unmanifested stage, Prakriti when things are manifested. And one more word here, it is said Nityam. Nityam Sad Asad Atmakam. Nityam means it is eternal. Unmanifested stage or manifested stage, but it is there. And Nityam Sad Asad Atmakam. Okay, so the Lord points out material nature in its subtle stage, which is called Pradhan. The subtle stage. We already discussed this because it has not yet manifested in different elements. So he analyzes this as Pradhan. The explanation of Pradhan and Prakriti is that Pradhan is subtle, the undifferentiated sum total of all material elements. And although they are undifferentiated, one can understand that the total material elements are contained therein. And when the total material elements are manifested by the interaction of the three modes, the manifestation is called Prakriti. Yeah. So when the cause and effect are not clearly manifested, avyakt, the reaction of the total element does not take place. That is called Pradhan. So Pradhan, in one sense, when there is just the idea of making a building, so that's the Pradhan. And when the building comes out, it is Prakriti. In just in small words to understand. So Pradhan and Prakriti, very simple. Let's go to 11th verse.
Panchibhihi panchabhirbrahma chaturbhirdashabhistatha etat chaturvishatikam ganam pradhanikam viduhu.
Yeah. Okay.
Translation: the aggregate elements, namely the 5 gross elements, the 5 subtle elements, the 4 internal senses, the 5 senses for gathering knowledge, and the 5 outward organs of actions are known as the.
Yes. So Sanskrit, if you know, then Panchabhi, 8, Chaturvimshati. Vimshati means 20 and Chatur means 4. So 24. So 5, Panchabhi Brahma, Chaturbhi is 4, and Dashabhi is 10. So all these things. So basically, there are these aggregate elements, namely the 5 gross elements. What are those 5 gross elements? Acha, aage they will describe. So we will just read ahead. 5 gross elements, 5 subtle elements, the 4 internal senses, the 5 senses for gathering knowledge, and the 5 outward organs of action, the working senses, are known as pradhan. So these are all different elements: 5, 5, 4, 10, and 24, total. So 5, 5, 10 plus 10, 20 plus 4, 24 elements. And later it will come more, Jiva 26, and then Kala 27, like that. So these 24 elements description. So let's read only the translation. 12, 13, 14 translation.
These are the 5 gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. There are also 5 subtle elements: smell, taste, color, touch, and sound. Text 13. The senses for acquiring knowledge and organs for actions, number 10, namely the auditory sense, the sense of taste, the tactile sense, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the active organ for speaking, the active organs for working, and those for traveling, generating, and evacuating.
Yeah.
Text 14. The eternal subtle senses are experienced as having 4 aspects in the shape of mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. Distinctions between them can be made only by different functions, since they represent different characteristics.
Yes. So mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness, chitta. So these are 4 antakaranas. It is described here as mana, buddhi, ahankar, chitta, iti antar atmaka. So antar atmaka or antakarana, these 4, mana, buddhi, ahankar, and chitta. They are distinct because of their function. So chitta is one through which the awareness is attained. So we will see its characteristics also. Internal subtle senses are experienced as having 4 aspects: antaratmakam, chaturdha, lakshyate, bhedo, vitte, lakshana, rupa. So these are, they are different because of their different characteristics or different functions. When pure consciousness is polluted, then one identifies with the body, becomes prominent, and this is said to be situated under false ego. And consciousness polluted by material contamination is called ahankar. So these are 24 elements described in these 3 verses: 5 gross elements, 5 tanmatra, sense object, then 5 working senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and then 4 antakarana: mind, intelligence, false ego, and chitta. So this is 24. And 15th verse makes it 25 by adding time on it. So let's read 15th verse, only translation.
All these are considered the qualified Brahman. The mixing element as time is counted as the 25th element.
Yeah. So the mixing element, which is known as time, is the 25th element. So one by one, the elements are increasing. We'll see 24, 25, 26, 28 also. So above, whatever we saw, 24 elements plus time makes it 25, all put together, is called Etavanev Sankhyato Brahmano Sagunasya. So Brahmana Sagun. So Sagun Brahma is said. So this terminology, Sagun Brahma, is we have to understand in a right perspective, because Mayavadi understands it in a different way. So Mayavadi says that when the Lord appears in his physical or a deity form, it is Sagun form. Because we cannot see in the beginning the impersonal absolute truth, which is Nirgun, without any quality, because he is Nirgun according to them. So initially they start worshipping this Sagun form, Sagun Brahma, in the form of deities. But the Brahman is not Sagun according to them. It is Nirgun. And when slowly we get trained, one gives up the worship of that Sagun Brahma and start worshipping the impersonal absolute, the Nirgun Brahma. That is Mayavadi's understanding. Okay. So this term Sagun Brahma has to be understood nicely. It is there, but it means this material world basically. So material world, this 25 elements, all those 24 elements plus time, that makes Sagun Brahma. So material elements, material world, consists of all these. Sagun Brahman is called these 25 elements. And spiritual world means Shuddha Brahman, Shuddha Sattva. So Brahman plus these 25 elements is Sagun Brahman. What is Bhakti or theistic or Vaishnav scriptures talk about is Sagun Brahman is nothing but this material world. It is not a deity form of the Lord as understood by the Mayavadis. That first we will, worship this Sagun Brahman in the beginning stage, and later when we get trained, then we leave this and worship the Nirgun because that is the supreme. So that is not the right understanding according to the Vaishnava Acharyas. So according to Vedic version, there is no existence beyond Brahman. It is stated also in Vishnu Puran that whatever we see is Parastya Brahmana Sakti. Everything is an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Lord. And when Brahman is mixed with these three qualities, goodness, passion, ignorance, their results are material expansion, which is sometimes called Sagun. Along with these gunas is Sagun. Brahman, and this is Prabhupada's purport I'm reading. Brahman, and which consists of these 25 elements, is Sagun Brahman. In the Nirgun Brahman, where there is no material contamination, or in the spiritual world, is Nirgun Brahman, when there is no modes, the three modes are not present. Where Nirgun Brahman is found, simple unalloyed goodness prevails. So Nirgun Brahma means Shuddha Brahman in the spiritual world, Shuddha Sattva, which is we say. So Sagun Brahman is described by the Sankhya system of philosophy as consisting of these 25 elements, including the time factor. So next verse talks about the characteristics of time. So yes, Prabhuji, Manohar Dvija Prabhu. We will take a break after this and then continue with 16 verse. Yes.
It is just to make more clear to myself that the Nirguna Brahma and Saguna Brahma is like the two parts of the sky, the total sky. One part of the sky is covering the material elements, and another part of the sky is the spiritual area or spiritual space of existence.
Yeah,
Nirguna. How we can.
Yeah. That is what you want to comment, Prabhuji?
Yes, it was just to understand your point of view, that it about the it is about the consistency, how the sky is divided into two parts.
Yes. Okay. So what we understood is, yes, Nirgun Brahma, the spiritual world, and Sagun Brahma, is the material world. So that's what Prabhupada is also explaining, the spiritual world, which is free from the three modes, the influence of the three modes. They are not present there. So Nirgun.
So still Pradhan is there, though when the Pradhan is there, which is unmanifested, which you referred as a milk state. So that is the
Brahma.
Saguna Brahma.
Yes, that's what this was talking about. Yeah, Sagun Brahma.
So the area where Pradhan is present is Sagun Brahma. Where Pradhan is not present, it is Nirgun Brahma.
Pradhan, yeah. In unmanifested stage is Pradhan, and it is basically the back of the material creation. So it is Sagun Brahma. Yes. Okay, thank you. We take a break of 10 minutes and meet in 11:40 at 11:40. Hare Krishna. So let's start from verse number 16. Characteristics of time. 26. You can hear my voice now?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Yeah. Verse number 16.
Text 16. The influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of the deluded soul who has contacted material nature.
Yes. Due to the false ego of the deluded soul who has contacted material nature, what comes is fear of death. So identification with the wrong thing causes fear. So this 16th verse, 25th element, instigator of fear of death in the conditioned soul. So this time is also, it is Prabhavam Porusham. Prabhavam Porusham. It is the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor. Prahu Kalam Ek Yato Bhayam. So this time is said to be the power of the Supreme Lord by which fear arises. Bhayam. So in that living entity who thinks he is the doer, Prakritim Iyusha. Prakritim Iyusha, because of contact with the material nature. Having come in contact with Prakriti and Ahankara Vimudasya. Ahankara Vimudasya Kartu Prakritim Iyusha. Because of Ahankara, being bewildered by the false ego, he thinks he is Kartu, he is the Karta. In such a living entity, time creates fear. So, fear comes in the conditioned jiva. Instigator of fear of death in the conditioned jiva because of Prakritim Ahankara Vimudasya. Because having come in contact with the Prakriti, he thinks himself as a doer, as a false karta by false ego. So that means an important point. Time does not create fear for everyone. Time instills fear only on the conditioned soul. For materialistic people, it acts as a carrier of karma. Therefore, it's fearful. But for devotees, it carries the will of the Lord. Right? So therefore, instigator of fear of death in the conditioned jiva. So like for the devotees, it carries the will of the Lord. So for Arjuna or Pandavas like Yudhishthira Maharaj or Bhishma Dev, it is all the carrier of the will of the Lord. So that is a very good point here. The living entity's fear of death is due to his false ego of identifying with the body. Actually, there is no death for the spirit soul, but due to our absorption in the identification of a body as a self, the fear of death develops. We identify ourselves as the body. So there is a fear develops. One who is absorbed in this element or exhibition of these elements is afraid of death. But when one is fully convinced that he is not this body, there is no question of fear of death because he is the soul and soul is eternal. Since the spiritual soul never dies. So the fear of death is the action of the Kala or the time factor which represents the influence of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhavam Purusham, the influence of the Supreme Lord is felt by time factor. It causes fear in the conditioned soul. That is the sum and substance of this verse. But if one surrenders on the Supreme Lord, there is no longer any fear of birth and death. So 17th verse, another characteristic of time.
My dear mother, O daughter of Swambhu Manu, the time factor, as I have explained, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom the creation begins as a result of the agitation of the neutral, unmanifested nature.
Yes. Prakrite guna samyasta nirvisheshya manavi cheshta yata sa bhagavana kala iti upalakshita. So another characteristic of time that Kapil Dev mentions here is powerful time. Bhagavan kala iti upalakshita. So this time is described as yatah prakriti cheshta, which creates agitation in prakriti. Over the period of time, these modes getting activated. Matlab, the agitation began in prakriti or pradhan basically at the moment. So by these elements of time, gunas or the modes get activated. Agitator of gunas in prakriti that leads to material creation. So pradhan is inactive, as we discussed, as long as the modes are inactive. But when it becomes active by the glance of the Supreme Lord, the three modes start acting, and this happens by the element of time. Before the time element, the three gunas were in inactive state. So the characteristics of time, first we saw it instigates fear in the conditioned soul. Second, it agitates the gunas. And third, we will see in the 18th verse. Third characteristic, 18th verse.
By using his potencies, the Supreme Personality of Godhead adjusts all these different elements, keeping himself within as the super soul and without as time.
Yeah, very clear, Lord exists internally as Paramatma and externally as time. So he, the Supreme Lord, by his own energies exists internally as Paramatma and externally as time. He is that Supreme Lord. So in the material world, Lord only is the controller. Everywhere he is internally also as Paramatma, as Antaryami, and externally as time. So ultimately, it is the Supreme Lord Bhagwan only who is the controller, the Supreme Controller. So this is from 15 to 18, the characteristics of time. Outside the body, the last paragraph, outside the body of the conditioned soul, the Supreme Lord remains as time factor. And according to Sankhya system, there are 25 elements, the 24 elements described plus the 25th the time. And according to some learned philosophers, the super soul is included to make a total of 26. So abhi tak humne 25 dekha tha, 24 elements plus 25 the time. And now some philosophers also say the 26th element as the super soul. 26 elements. So 19th verse onwards is the characteristics of Mahatattva. So 19, 20, 21 is about Mahatattva. Let's read 19 translation.
Translation: after the Supreme Personality of Godhead impregnates material nature with its internal potency, material nature delivers the sum total of the cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranamya. This takes place in material nature when she is agitated by the destinations of the conditioned soul.
Yes. Paraha Puman, that means the Supreme Person, the Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead. He Adhat Viryam Shashuta. So Adhat is impregnate. Viryam is semen. So he impregnates. Who? Sa. Sa here is material energy, material nature. And Ashuta. Ashuta is delivers. Mahat Tattvam Hiranmayam. So that sum total of cosmic thing is Hiranmaya, which the Supreme Lord, Paraha Puman, with his gland, he impregnates the Pradhan with the living entities. Swasyam Yono, that means Swasya refers to his own. The material energy is Lord's own energy, right? So Swasya, he impregnates his own energy. Swasya refers to Prakriti, his own energy, his own wife, you can say, The Supreme Lord impregnates his own Prakriti or his wife or, the material nature. So Swasya Yono, in her womb. And Shubhita Dharminyam. Shubhita means agitate. Dharminyam, so whose gunas were agitated then, by the time element. So first the time element acts, the gunas agitate them, and then the Lord impregnates the jivas into the prakriti, into her womb, and sa means she, the prakriti, then asuta give birth. So mahat tattva hiranmayam adhatta virya sasuta mahat tattvam hiranmayam. So hiranmayam, she gave birth to mahat tattva, which is hiranmayam, golden in color, hiranmayam, brilliant and shining. So by the glance of Supreme Lord, Prakriti gives birth to this mahat tattva. We have it's a detailed description we saw in the second canto, right? So material nature's primal factor is the mahat tattva, or breeding source of all varieties. This part of material nature, which is called Pradhan as well as Brahman, is impregnated by the Supreme Lord and delivers varieties of living entities. So material nature in this connection is called Brahman because it is perverted reflection of the spiritual nature. She is working under Lord's direction. After impregnation, material nature delivers all kinds of living entities, beginning from the greatest living creature, Lord Brahma, down to the insignificant and all varieties. So she, Lord is the seed-giving father, but then she gives them, she facilitates all other things of creation, beginning from the greatest living creature, Brahma, down to the insignificant ant. Example, father gives life to the child, but the mother gives its body. Similarly, the spiritual living entities are impregnated into the womb of material nature, but the body, being supplied by material nature, takes on many different species and different forms of life. So, text 20.
Text 20, translation. Thus, after manifesting variegatedness, the effulgent Mahatattva, which contains all the universes within itself, which is the root of all cosmic manifestations and which is not destroyed at the time of annihilation, swallows the darkness that's covered the effulgence at the time of dissolution.
Yes. So, here, Mahatattva is addressed as Jagat Ankura, means the seed. Ankur means the seed. The seed of the universe. So from this seed, whole universe is going to get manifested. So Mahatattva, Kutastho Jagat Ankura. So without Vishwam Atmagatam Vyajjan, Kutastho Jagat Ankura. So because this Mahatattva is the main seed form where from where this whole universe is going to manifest. So this Mahatattva is represented in individual human body as Chitta. Mahatattva is a state before Ahankar becomes active. Now, if you remember the second canto we did before this Pradhan, then the Lord impregnates, and then the mode starts acting. And then the Mahatattva gets created when a mode of goodness is prominent. Then Mahatattva. I can show that screen, later. It is there in the book also. So Mahatattva when the mode of goodness is predominant. So at that time, mode of goodness, is there. The next is Ahankar. So Mahatattva is a state before the Ahankar gets activated. So Ahankar is created after Mahatattva. This we saw in the second canto. This Mahatattva is uncontaminated consciousness. It's in the mode of goodness, within the body of the living entity. So the next verse, which describes the Mahatattva, is how it at the time of creation, this Mahatattva, this Chitta is described basically. So in this verse 19, 20, 21, where the characteristics of Mahatattva is described, it is said at the time of dissolution, the whole manifested universe goes inside the Mahatattva, and that Mahatattva, which is brilliant, is consumed by the darkness of dissolution. So in one small example, we can understand this very clearly. Prabhupada says, a person at night remains inactive, covered by the darkness of night. But when he is awakened in the morning, the covering of the night or the forgetfulness of the sleep state disappears. So, similarly, when the Mahat Tattva appears after the night of dissolution, the effulgence is manifested to exhibit the variegatedness of this material world. So, what happens when the time of creation comes? When the sun sets, there is darkness, and when the sun rises, there is a light. So it is the process, So during the time of dissolution, in a similar way, the darkness of dissolution covers the Mahat Tattva. And when it is the time for creation, the same Mahat Tattva, its brilliance swallows that darkness, like the sun swallows the dark night and then gives the light, So the darkness of dissolution is swallowed by this Mahat Tattva. That is what is described here, So at the time of creation, the light comes, the darkness goes basically, So that Mahat Tattva, which is brilliant, is consumed by the darkness of dissolution at the time of dissolution. So let's read 21 also.
Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Mataji, he says Manohar Dij Prabhu has raised his hand.
Okay, Manohar Dij Prabhuji, yes.
Mataji, I had two doubts on the last
Yes.
verses.
Yes.
One is, you said that the Brahman, the sky, has Nirguna Brahma and Saguna Brahma. So Nirguna Brahma has Pradhan. So after the Pradhan is, the verse 15 to 18 says that the Kal agitates Prakriti, not Pradhan. The Kal agitates Prakriti,
Yes.
impregnates with Jiva. So when the Pradhan is the unmanifest state, comes into the manifested state. Because when it comes into manifested state, then Kal comes and impregnates and agitates the gunas in it.
Yes.
So when the Pradhan is unmanifest state is going into the manifested state.
Yes.
So when and where it is mentioned that the Pradhan is then the unmanifest state comes into the milk comes into the Sandesh state. It's like, so
yeah.
How we can understand this?
How we can understand that the Pradhan stage has come to the Prakriti stage? Like, that is the question?
Yes, that's the question.
By the Lord's glance. The process is Pradhan stage, the Lord glances, it impregnates, and then the mode starts becoming active. When the mode starts becoming active, when the mode of goodness is prominent, it is Mahat Tattva. And when slowly the Ahankar comes, and then when the mode of ignorance is prominent, then it comes as Ahankar. And that Ahankar further comes in, mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance, those three. So that's how the creation happens. One thing you are getting confused with Prakriti and Pradhan probably. So that word is used as Prakriti, in the unmanifested stage. But it can be used sometimes because it will come as Prakriti, So, but the understanding is yes, when it is unmanifested stage, it is Pradhan, and it is called Prakriti because it will manifest all its elements. So it is basically Prakriti only, but it is an unmanifested state, so it is called as Pradhan. So these is, different.
Okay. So Prakriti in unmanifested state will be called Pradhan.
Yes, sir.
And the second point,
yeah.
The second question was in verse, the last verse it says that Hiranamya. So this is Hiranamya is Mahat Tattva only.
What Hiranamya is?
The meaning of Hiranamya which has been given is total cosmic intelligence. So can we say that Hiranamya is Mahatattva only?
Hiranmaya is known as what?
The sum total of cosmic intelligence, also called Hiranamya.
Nature delivers the sum total of cosmic intelligence. So that Hiranmaya, that आगे भी इसका description आएगा. What is that? Universal egg, whatever. So this is a golden effulgent, thing. So this is the sum total of all cosmic intelligence. That means from here, all the things is going to, evolve or going to come. So this is the sum total of, or the seed form of all the elements or all the things. So therefore,
What is the difference between Mahatattva and Hiranamya?
What is the difference between?
Mahatattva and Hiranamya.
It's a different stage, Prabhuji. It's a different stage, basically. Initially, the Lord lands and they impregnate, and this is delivered. The sum total of all the cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranmaya. It's like an egg form. It will come. Future may, you will see. In the same chapter, I think it will come.
Mataji, can you further explain it?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hiranamya, I also getting confused. What is Hiranamya?
Prabhuji, it's a seed form of all the things which is going to manifest. A mother delivered this, after the Supreme Personality impregnates this material, this Prakriti, material nature delivered this, which is known as Hiranmaya. So this is the sum total of all the cosmic manifestation, basically.
Dvij Prabhu is also rightly asking, can you differentiate between these two, Pradhan and Hiranamya?
Okay. Should we take this question at the end after finishing the chapter? Maybe the answer will be clear.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So, verse number 21.
The mode of goodness, which is clear, sober status of understanding the personality of Godhead, and which is generally called Vasudev or consciousness, becomes manifest in the Mahatattva.
Yes, the mode of goodness, which is clear, sober status of understanding the personality of Godhead, generally known as Vasudev or consciousness, becomes manifest in the Mahatattva. So the Vasudev manifestation, Prabhupada says, or the status of understanding the Supreme Lord is called pure goodness or Shuddha Sattva. So in the Shuddha Sattva stage, there is no infringement of the other qualities, namely passion and ignorance. So the reappearance of Mahatattva, the four expansions of Godhead occur. Here, the first expansion is Vasudev. Well, we know Vasudev, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshan. So the Vasudev stage is free from infringement by material desires and the status in which one can understand the Supreme Lord. So basically, Vasudev is the, we will see one by one, the presiding deity of each element also. So Chitta manifests in Mahatattva. So this Sattva Guna, which is goodness, is Vasudev is the presiding deity of this Mahatattva. So ek ke abhi presiding deities we will see. The Vasudev expansion is also called Krishna consciousness, for it is free from all tints of material passion and ignorance. So basically, what we have to practice is Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Anavritam. So the practice is this Krishna consciousness, which is beyond the three modes. Though the practitioner may not be beyond three modes at the moment. The practice, what we have to do is this Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Anavritam. It's beyond the three modes. But the practitioner may not be at that level. So slowly by practicing, we will reach that goal, that stage. And it can, the practice or the bhakti, the sadhana bhakti, what we are doing, it can take the practitioner to that goal by continuously following that. So Srila Prabhupada says here, Vasudev consciousness is nothing but Krishna consciousness. Vasudeva consciousness is nothing but Krishna consciousness. He says that. So when Krishna or Vishnu is alone without the accompaniment of his energy, he is Vasudeva. When he is accompanied by his internal potency, he is called Dwarkadish. To have clear consciousness of Krishna consciousness, one has to worship Vasudeva. So Vasudeva is the presiding deity of this Chitta. We will see now one by one what is this presiding deity. So in order to get released from the false ego will come later in 23rd verse, but here Prabhupada is mentioning before. In order to get released from the false ego, one has to worship Sankarshan. So Sankarshan is also worshipped through Lord Shiva. The snakes which cover the body of Lord Shiva are representations of Sankarshan. And Lord Shiva is always absorbed in meditation upon Sankarshan. So one actually is a worshipper of Lord Shiva, as a devotee of Sankarshan, can be released from false ego. So basically, we will see every element here, the subtle elements, have their presiding deities. So Mahat Tattva, represented by Chitta, has the presiding deity Vasudeva, and false ego has the presiding deity as Sankarshan, or Shiva. So if one wants to get free from false ego, it is said worship or meditate on Sankarshan. Sankarshan can release us from this false material ego. And if one wants to get free from mental disturbances, one has to worship Aniruddha. So for every one element, there is one personality, For Chitta, Vasudeva. For false ego, Sankarshan. For mind, mental disturbances, Aniruddha. And for intelligence, Pradyumna. Prabhupada is mentioned here only, So these matters are explained in the Vedic literature. So it will come again later also. So this Chitta, here we are talking about. So the characteristics of Chitta is given in verse number 22. Let's read 22 words.
After the manifestation of the Mahat Tattva, these features appear simultaneously. As water in its natural state, before coming in contact with earth, is clear, sweet, and unruffled. So the characteristic traits of pure consciousness are complete serenity, clarity, and freedom from distraction.
Yes. So these are the characteristics of Chitta. Just like a pure water. Yathapam prakrite para apam. Apam means water. So yatha apam, like a water, it was clear actually. Pure water is clear. When we mix some fragrance or some color, then it changes. But pure water is very clear. So similarly is our Chitta. It's pure, just like pure water, which has no color or fragrance. But when mixed with something, gives colors or some fragrance. So this Chitta is, the quality is Swachhatvam, means clarity. Avikaritvam, freedom from all distractions. Avikaritvam means changeless, basically. And Shantatvam means peaceful. Shantatvam, serenity. So these are the qualities of Chitta in its original state. Here, representation of Mahat Tattva in the body of the Jiva is represented by Chitta, the consciousness, and these are the qualities. Serenity, clarity, and freedom from any distractions. Then comes 23 to 26, the qualities of Ahankar, characteristics of false ego. So, Prabhupada writes about Chitta, the pure state of consciousness exists in the beginning. Just after the creation, consciousness is not polluted. The more one becomes materially contaminated, the more consciousness becomes obscured. So, the example of water. Okay, let's see 23 words. 23, 24, 25, 26. These are the 4 verses of Ahankar. We can read together and then discuss. Read the translation of these 4 verses. 23, 24, 25, 26.
Text 23 to 24. The material ego springs up from the Mahat Tattva, which evolved from the Lord's own energy. The material ego is endowed predominantly with active power of 3 kinds: good, passionate, and ignorant. It is from these 3 types of material ego that the mind, the senses of perception, The organs of action and the gross elements evolve. Text 25. The threefold ahankar, the source of the gross elements, the senses and the mind, is identical with them because it is their cause. It is known by the name of Sankarshan, who is directly Lord Ananta with 1,000 heads.
Yes.
Text 26. This false ego is characterized as the doer, as an instrument and as an effect. It is further characterized as serene, active, or dull according to how it is influenced by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Yes. Thank you, Mataji. So 23, 24 says, this Mahatattva further transforms into Ahankar. So, Ahankar Sambhavat, so it evolves, it comes. So Mahatattva further transformed by the glance of the Lord, Ahankar Sambhavat. Ahankar was born. And what is the nature of this Ahankar? It's endowed with these three things. It's said here. Gyan Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti. Right? So, Gyan Shakti, this Gyan Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti. The word itself shows its meaning, like Dravya Shakti. Dravya means the element. So Dravya Shakti means it has the potency to give all the material elements. That is the Dravya Shakti. And Kriya Shakti means it has the ability to manipulate those elements. Some Kriya. Dravya means the elements, jaise atta, namak, whatever oil or whatever is there, these are all ingredients, the Dravya. And then Kriya Shakti means mixing those things. Kriya. So Dravya Shakti means it has the potency to give all the material elements. Kriya Shakti means it has the ability to manipulate those elements. And Gyan Shakti means these subtle senses are the Gyan Shakti means the mind and the sense devatas. So subtle senses are product of Kriya Shakti, doing something, And Gyan Shakti means mind and the sense devatas. So this is all, I remember we have done in second canto, So all this is manifestations of false ego. I can show that chart also quickly, in 1 minute, so that we can immediately remember where we read this in second canto. Just 1 minute, give me. I think, yeah, this one. Second canto, 5th chapter. So this one, yeah. Mahavishnu, then he impregnates this material nature. Pradhan, 3 modes were inactive. Then it becomes active. Then Mahatattva, and then Ahankar, which is predominantly in Tamas. From that comes goodness, passion, ignorance. There's Gyan Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti. So this is from second canto. So from okay. So from Gyan Shakti comes mind and 10 sense devatas. From Kriya Shakti comes 10 senses and intelligence. And from Dravya Shakti comes these elements. So the Dravya. So Dravya means it has this material elements. It has the power to give. It has the potency, ability to give material elements. Kriya Shakti means the 10 senses and the intelligence, which is the ability to manipulate those elements. And then Gyan Shakti means the mind and the 10 sense devatas. And 10 sense devatas also I will show you now, because it okay. Oh, it might be in another slide, but we have 10 sense devatas, which will come in future verses. Okay. So, coming back to our discussion here. Okay. So, characteristics of Ahankar, it manifests in the form of mind from mode of goodness, from senses from mode of passion, and from mode of ignorance, all these elements, that's what we saw. So, birth of false ego or Ahankar is given from after the Mahatattva gets transformed into Ahankar, Then 25th verse says, the threefold Ahankar, the source of gross elements, the senses and the mind, is identical with them because it is their cause. And it is known by the name Sankarshan, who is directly Lord Ananta with the 1,000 heads. So Sankarshan is a worshipable deity of Ahankar. So if one wants to get rid of Ahankar, one has to worship Sankarshan. If one wants to purify his consciousness, he has to worship Vasudev, Chitta ka Vasudev, mind ka Anirudh, and intelligence ka Pradyumna. So that is, we already read that. And in 26th verse, this false ego is characterized as a doer, as an instrument, or as an effect. Kartutvam, Karanatvam, evam Karyatvam. This also was there in the last slide. So, it is further characterized as serene, active, or dull according to how it is influenced by these modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Sometimes it identifies with gross body, and it can produce peace, matlab serene, then in mode of goodness, or very much active and in mode of passion, and bewilderment depending on, if he is in the mode of ignorance. So, depends on how he identifies with, in which mode, So Ahankar or the false ego is transformed into the sense devatas, the controlling directors of material affairs, and as an instrument. So these three things are there: Kartuttavyam, Karnatvam, and the Karyatam. So the living entity thinks himself as a doer or enjoyer or proprietor. So by false ego, because of this Ahankar, he thinks himself like that. In this, and Narottam Das Thakur Prabhupada has given a wonderful thing. I have given up the pure state of consciousness because I wanted to enjoy. Therefore, I have been entangled in this network of actions and reactions. This is meaning of one of the bhajans. Anyway, so this all is product of false ego. Now, 27, 28 is the characteristics of man, mind. Let's read both translations.
Text 27. From the false ego of goodness, another transformation takes place. From this evolves the mind, whose thoughts and reflections give rise to desire. Text 28. The mind of the living entity is known by the name of Lord Aniruddha, the supreme ruler of the senses. He possesses a bluish-black form resembling a lotus flower growing in the autumn. He is found slowly by the yogis.
Yes, thank you. So mind is, the nature of the mind is sankalpa vikalpa, accept, reject, always the mind, it goes. And why this happens? Why sankalpa and vikalpa happens? Because of the previous impressions. Whatever we have previous experiences, because of those impressions, mind rejects something or accepts something. So, same mind, Prabhupada says, if we engage in Krishna's service, it will be purified by our good association and good practice. So mind is chanchal, but when engaged in Krishna consciousness, it becomes fixed. Because presiding here it is next verse, presiding deity of mind is Aniruddha. So so long as it is not engaged in Krishna's service, it is chanchal. But when it is fixed in Krishna's service, then when it is engaged nicely, then it is fixed, So mind can become fixed. So this is the nature of the mind. Appears from false ego, and characteristics are sankalpa, vikalpa. Presiding deity is Aniruddha. Now 29:30 is about buddhi. Yes, let's read 29:30 together.
By transformation If the false ego in passion, intelligence takes birth. O vicious lady, the functions of intelligence are to help in ascertaining the nature of objects when they come into view and to help the senses. Doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep, as determined by their different functions, are said to be the distinct characteristics of intelligence.
Yes, so beautiful. This about intelligence. Like mind appear from false ego in sattva, buddhi or intelligence appears from false ego in rajas. You know? So the characteristics are given in 29 and 30, which says dravya spurana vijnanam. Dravya spurana vijnanam. That means consciousness directed to manifestation of the object. That means something that helps us understand the object. Dravya spura vijnanam. That tells something about the object, you know. And indriyanam anugrah. It shows or favors or assists the indriyanam, especially the jnanendriyas, you know, by giving the knowledge, buddhi. So the mind, the chitta, the false ego, all of them assist, but assistance of buddhi is really significant, you know, in giving the knowledge of that object, of any object, that means. So the buddhi, how it works, all these four things, like when we are passing through the kitchen or the place where something is getting cooked, we get the fragrance of something is getting cooked. Let's say pakora is getting cooked. So the sense impulse hits up. That means because of that fragrance of frying pakoras, the nose smells that. Fragrance enters our nostrils, and I immediately recognize that because of my experience. I understood they are frying pakoras, and that means I'm going to get it in the next meal, or lunch or dinner, whatever, you know. So the smile automatically comes, or the happiness or some good thing comes in your face, you know. All that happens in a fraction of a second. Pakora smell. And this fraction of a second, what happens with this mind, chitta, and buddhi? Sense of smell, first of all, accept that fragrance. Nice smell of something what you like. It activates our chitta, which our chitta says that something is catching our attraction, you know, attention. So that activates our buddhi to find out that what is it. So buddhi find out, oh, fragrance is of pakora. So buddhi, works like that. You know, it matches. This is the fragrance of pakoras, which I have that experience. So the mind comes in picture because of the previous impression of eating a pakora. That was good. So that's why all this, stimulation is happening. So that buddhi activates the mind. So see, first the nostrils, the senses got this fragrance, and then the chitta reciprocated by a smile, and then the buddhi, the buddhi activates to find out what is it, and then the mind activates, giving the impression previous experience of pakora was good. So mind says this fragrance is acceptable or not. Yes, it is good. It is acceptable. So because of the previous recordings, you know, what impressions he had. So good. Then false ego says, yes, I really like it. So it is really good for me. Then it manifests in the form of smile, you know, and this is all different role of different elements here inside for antahkaran. So the function of chitta is awareness, and as soon as this, it stimulates, it activates basically. So chitta, because of this chitta, the smile came, and buddhi went and found out what is happening, and mind tells because of the previous experience it is good. So All this is all connected and it happens in a fraction of a second. So by transformation of the false ego in passion, intelligence takes birth. So the intelligence, the function is to help in ascertaining the nature of the objects when they come into view. They, whatever senses we got the information, this intelligence work in helping in ascertaining the nature of the object. And intelligence is the discriminating power to understand an object, and it helps the sense make choices. The senses make choices, So the next verse, 30th verse says, other the characteristics of intelligence are doubt, means so the last verse we saw identifying the nature of the object, and it helps the senses to recognize that and accept that, And then in 30th verse, doubt. Now, what is this doubt? Doubt means sanshaya, whether this is right for me or not right for me, whether it is right or wrong. So when we doubt, when we try to doubt, we get the answer. We identify whether it is, viparyasato or nishchaya. So sanshaya atha viprashaya nishchaya. That means जब हम doubt करते हैं, when we doubt, we try to understand whether it is right for me or not right for me. So viparyasato, we ascertain it is a false knowledge, matlab it is not good. Or nishchaya, what is right, what is right knowledge. And smriti, this is also a characteristic of intelligence. Smriti means remembrance. We remember things. And last one is sleep. How sleep? Prabhupada says, if you cannot have proper sleep, intelligence cannot function. And that's true, हमारा दिमाग काम नहीं करता है अगर हमारी नींद अच्छी नहीं हुई है. So sleep also is a characteristic of intelligence. In this way, he explains that way. If too much sleep, one becomes lazy, and too less sleep, Prabhupada says, one becomes crazy. So that's how it is. Sleep is also necessary to keep intelligence in working order. Smriti means memory, and swapa means sleep. So if there is no sleep, the brain cannot work nicely. Therefore, it is said, regulate eating, sleeping, and other necessities. So yukta hara viharasya, yukta karma satesya. So this Bhagavad Gita verse. So this is all the characteristics of intelligence, buddhi. Now 31 is characteristics of senses. Let's read 31 verse.
Text 31 translation. Egoism in the mode of passion produces two kinds of senses, the senses for acquiring knowledge and the senses for action. The senses of action depend on the vital energy, and the senses of acquiring knowledge depend on intelligence.
So very clear. Senses of action means karmendriya, and senses of acquiring knowledge means jnanendriya. So jnanendriya gets power from intelligence. Direct connection. Jnanendriya gets power from intelligence, and karmendriya gets power from vital energy, that is prana. So prana, जब weak हो जाता है हमारा prana, the vital energy, when it becomes weak, we, for any reason, when we don't eat or our digestion is poor, the food does not get digested, the digestive fire doesn't work nicely, that means the prana becomes weak. So when prana becomes weak, what happens? वो कोई चीज उठाने में हमको तकलीफ होती है, चलने में तकलीफ, दौड़ने में तकलीफ, एनर्जी नहीं है, तो कर्मेंद्रिया does not work. So when prana becomes weak, then it becomes difficult to lift things, climb stairs, or do some work. Karmendriya becomes very, very weak. But jnanendriya are active. We still can see, we still can hear, we still can taste, but the karmendriyas become weak. Getting up, sitting down, walking, climbing. So prana, because of the vital energy. Karmendriya gets their power from prana. It's clear here. The senses of action depends on the vital energy, prana. And the senses of acquiring knowledge, the jnanendriya gets their power from intelligence. So when the intelligence becomes weak, the functioning of jnanendriyas are compromised, does not work properly. Example, small child. उसका इंटेलिजेंस इतना डेवलप नहीं होता है. तो स्मॉल चाइल्ड इंटेलिजेंस इज नॉट yet developed, so ज्ञान इंद्रियां have very poor functioning. A small child, they pick anything and they put in the mouth. They don't understand this is good or not good, this is eatable or not eatable, because their gyan indriyas are not developed, right? So because their intelligence is not developed, so he will pick whatever and put it in his mouth. The same thing when adults put, they will feel disgusted. Oh, what is this? It's not good. So this verse talks about Gyanendriya gets their power from intelligence, and Karmendriya gets their power from prana, the vital energy. And that's what Prabhupada has explained beautifully in this purport. So, okay, let's move to 32 verse. The tanmatras and the elements, that means all the elements, which is earth, water, air, fire, ether, and the tanmatras, the form, the taste, the smell, and everything. So 32 verse talks about the characteristics of tanmatras and these elements. Let's read that.
When egoism in ignorance is agitated by the sex energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the subtle element sound is manifested, and from sound come the ethereal sky and the sense of hearing.
Yes. So this also has discussed many times. The first comes the sound, from the subtle to gross. So most subtle is sound, and then one by one another the different elements. So first the subtlemost gets manifested, and then the grosser and grosser gets manifested. So tanmatras are subtler than its corresponding element, So first comes sound, and then ether. And from ether comes touch. And from touch comes its element air, and like that different other. So tanmatras and elements appear from false ego in tamas. Remember that second canto ka chart I showed you. All these tanmatras and elements come from ahankar in tamas, false ego in tamas. So let's go to 33. Sound, the first element.
Translation. Persons who are learned and who have true knowledge. 32 or 33?
Did we read 32 or I think we read 32?
Yes, it is 33 now.
33 now.
Persons who are learned and who have true knowledge define sound as that which conveys the idea of an object, indicates the presence of a speaker screen from our view, and constitutes the subtle form of ether.
Subtle form of ether, yes. So sound is the subtle form of ether. Tanmatra is the sound, and the element is ether. So the sound is the subtle form of ether. Characteristics of sound. Nice, huh? Artha ashrayatvam. Artha ashrayatvam. The first characteristic is Artha ashrayatvam. That means it conveys the meaning of an object. The sound conveys the meaning of its object. Let's say this phone. I tell, can you give me your cell phone? So the person picks up the cell phone and gives me. So I have just used the name cell phone, but that name reveals the object. So it is the expression. It signifies this object. So artha ashrayatvam, that which conveys the meaning of the object. Second is drishta lingatvam. Drishta lingatvam. So it reveals the speaker or the seer. So that means of the speaker, that which indicates the presence of something. So example, my friend calls out from the other side of the wall. My friend or my somebody at the house call me. I will recognize him because drishta lingitvam. So I will recognize him because I have heard his voice, so I can identify. with his sound, right? So I can identify who is that person who is speaking, even though I am not able to see that person. So it reveals the seer about the events also. For example, we see in our scriptures, Sukadeva Goswami or Vyasdev, they are the seers of pastimes of the Supreme Lord. They can see. And Shabdam, is the sound, in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, they can reveal this thing. Right? So, Artha Ashretvam and Drishta Lingitvam means it reveals the speaker or the seer, and then Tan Matratvam na cha nabaso lakshanam kavayo vidu. So the learned person says this, nabaso tan matram. It is the tan matra of the ether. That means first thing describes the characteristics, and then it is the tan matra of ether. So that is another characteristic of sound. It reveals the meaning, it reveals the seer, and it is the tan matra of ether. These three things. So entire material creation basically Prabhupada says started from the sound. Sound se start hua or sound se end bhi hoga. By the transcendental sound vibration, we can end this material entanglement also. It has that potency, the sound has that potency, you know. So this Prabhupada says this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra has the capacity to liberate us. So sound is the beginning of creation, and sound, when if we hear it and purified, our original spiritual abode also we can achieve. We can come out of this material world. So spiritual sound is so potent if we hear from the right source, Prabhupada says. And then next text 34 is the characteristics of ether. So sound is the tan matra for ether. So next comes ether. So 34.
The activities and characteristics of the ethereal element can be observed as accommodation for the room for the external and internal existences of all living entities, namely the field of activities of the vital air, the senses, and the mind.
Yes. So the mind, the senses, and the vital force or living entity have forms, although they are not visible to the naked eye. So this it also acts as a base for prana, senses, and mind. That means, so that subtle forms exist in the ether has been proven by modern science of transmission, science by transmission of television, by which forms or photographs of one place are transmitted to another place. So this carries. So this is how it's explained how subtle forms are generated from the ethereal elements. What their characteristics and actions are how the tangible elements, namely all the other air, fire, water, ether, are manifested from this subtle form of sound. So thinking, feeling, willing are the subtle forms, and acting is the gross. So this first is the sound, then from that comes ether, and now in 35-36 we will read how the touch comes. So the characteristics of this touch. Okay, next 35-36 together. Translation. Can somebody read?
From ethereal existence, which evolves from sound, the next transformation takes place under the impulse of time. And thus the subtle element touch and thence the air and sense of touch become prominent. Text 36. Softness and hardness and cold and heat are the distinguishing attributes of touch, which is characterized as the subtle form of air.
Yes. So touch, say we are able to find out whether it is hard or soft or cold and hot, like that. And the next is air. After the touch comes manifestation of air. So 37 was translation.
The action of air is exhibited in movements, mixing, allowing approach to the objects of sound, and other sense perceptions and providing for the proper functioning of all other senses.
Yes. So air carries fragrance. So it gives prana, oxygen. It moves. Chalanam, vyunam means it mixes, like in hurricane, And then all these are characteristics of air: movement, mixing, alloying, approach to the objects of sound and other sense perceptions, and providing for the proper functioning of all other senses. So Prabhupada gave here in purport, collect together vyunam, and chalana means to move. So it is only by the action of air that the body moves. And when air circulation is impeded, vata disorder, we say. Many diseases result because of vata disorder. Paralysis, nervous breakdown, madness, and many other diseases are actually due to insufficient circulation of air. So it plays a very important role. If someone calls us, we hear the sound because of the air circulation, and we approach that sound or the place from which the sound comes. So all these are the movements of air. The ability to detect or smell is also due to the action of air. So air can reach subtle senses. Yeah. So what all we are seeing, first the quality manifests and then the element. First the sound and then the ether. Like that. And the next was number 38. Let's read 38, 39 together.
By interactions of the air and the sensations, the touch, one receives different forms according to destiny. By evolution of such forms, there is fire, and the eye sees different forms in color. Text 39, my dear mother, the characteristics of form are understood by dimension, quality, and individuality. The form of fire is appreciated by its effulgence.
Yes, so the next from air and touch comes form, and the characteristics of forms are dimension, quality, individuality, all these things, This is, it provides shape and the size, and the next, it is the tanmatra of fire. So the next comes fire, which is text number 40. 40, yeah.
Yeah. Translation text 40. Fire is appreciated by its light and by its ability to cook, to digest, to destroy cold, to evaporate, and to give rise to hunger, thirst, eating, and drinking.
Yeah, so fire, it many qualities. It gives light, and its ability to cook, to digest, also to destroy the cold. When we are feeling very cold, the fire gives us warmth, to evaporate something, and to give rise to hunger, thirst, eating, and drinking. Krishna says, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva, like that, So drying or hunger or thirst, all this is governed by fire. If one's digestive fire is not working nicely, one does not feel thirsty also. So thirst is also governed by digestive fire. So all these things are characteristics of fire. Without fire, we cannot even digest our food, Prabhupada is telling. Without digestion, there is no hunger or thirst also to properly eat or drink. Yes. So Jathar Agni weak ho jati hai, then we have to go to again Ayurvedic doctor and make it strong. 41, the next comes is 41, 42, which is taste.
By the interaction of fire and the visual sensation, the subtle element taste evolves under a superior arrangement. From taste, water is produced, and the tongue, which perceives taste, is also manifested. Although originally one, taste becomes manifold as astringent, sweet, bitter, pungent, sour, and salty due to the contact with other substances.
Yes, these are the characteristics of different tastes. Let's go to 43, water.
The characteristics of water are exhibited by its moistening other substances, coagulating various mixtures, causing satisfaction, maintaining life, softening things, driving away heat, incessantly supplying itself to reservoirs of water, and refreshing by slaking thirst.
Yes, so these are the characteristics of water. It gets mixed, it moistens something, it helps in mixing different things, and it is for softening things. It is, if there's a lot of heat incessantly supplying itself to reservoir of water, means sometimes we dilute things, you know, there are concentrated things and then we dilute and mix more water. So you know, these are the different characteristics of water. Moisten karna usko, liquid, you know, banana. Okay, life depends on water. So first is, okay, let's see, 44, 45, 46, the final, you know, tanmatra and the elements, smell and earth. So let's read together till 46.
Text 44. Due to the interaction of water with the taste perception, the subtle element odor evolves under superior arrangement. Thence the earth and the olfactory sense by which we can variously experience the aroma of the earth become manifest. Text 45. Odor, although one, becomes many as mixed, offensive, fragrant, mild, strong, acidic, and so on, according to the proportions of associated substances. Text 46. The characteristics of the functions of earth can be perceived by modeling forms of the Supreme Brahman, by constructing places of residence, by preparing pots to contain water, etc. In other words, the earth is the place of sustenance for all elements.
Yes, so this is characteristics of smell, you know, odor, strong, mild, whatever, and then characteristics of earth. So, bhavanam, brahmana, sthanam, dharanam, sad visheshanam. Different elements like sound, sky, air, water, fire can be perceived in earth. So another feature of earth specially mentioned here is that earth can manifest different forms of the Supreme Lord. By manipulation of earth and its products, stone, marble, clay, whatever, the wood and jewels, these forms of the Supreme Lord can be present before our eyes by using this earth elements, you know. When a form of Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu is manifested by presentation of a statue made of earth, it is not imaginary. So the earth gives the shape to the Lord's form as described in the scriptures. So it is bona fide, you know. All these forms are described in the scriptures and then they are presented before the Lord with proper sanskar, they become worshipable, you know. So they are not imaginary as the Mayavadi things. So that is how all the things are created. And 47 to 49 says, still the cause exists in its effect as well, you know. One element is the cause of another element, you know. So the characteristics of the former exist in the later, you know. So all the characteristics of the former exist in the later. What does that mean? That the earth has everything, you know, the form, the taste, the touch, like that. So it has all the characteristics of the previous ones. So 47, 48, 49, let's read.
Text 47. The sense whose object of perception is sound is called the auditory sense, and that whose object of perception is touch is called the tactile sense. Text 48. The sense whose object of perception is form, the distinctive characteristic of fire is the sense of sight. The sense whose object of perception is taste, the distinctive characteristic of water, is known as the sense of taste. Finally, the sense whose object of perception is odor, the distinctive characteristic of earth is called the sense of smell.
Yeah.
Text 49.
Continue.
Okay. Shall I read text 49 as well, Mataji?
49 also, yes.
Okay. Since the cause exists in its effects as well, the characteristics of the former are observed in the latter. That is why the peculiarities of all the elements exist in the earth alone. Thank you.
Yes. So this is a description, and if you see Canto 2, Chapter 5, verse number 25 to 29, it's a similar description in detail, you know, how all these elements come. The variegatedness of the earth as so many trees and plants and mountains and rivers and birds and animals and varieties of human beings. They are all mutually the cause and effect of one another. But the original cause is the Lord himself. So this is from second canto. I give the reference. 5th chapter, verse number 25 to 29. The great detail. So this verse number 47, 48, 49, it tells about that unique quality of ether is sound. Unique quality of air is touch, and so on, this 48 verse. And all the cause exists in its effect as well. So the characteristics of the former are observed in the later. Like the earth has all the qualities, and earth has sense of smell, taste, form, touch, sound, etc. Later elements have all the previous qualities apart from their own unique qualities. So earth's unique quality is smell, but it has all the qualities of the previous elements. Water has taste, form, touch, and sound, like that. Fire has form, touch, and sound, and so on. So this ends the description of Karana Srishti, means all the elements and its characteristics is explained. And now comes the description of Karya Srishti. So Karan Srishti means ingredients, and Karya Srishti means now the Karya. Just by creation of all these elements, universal manifestation does not happen. There need to be some work also. So they have to get together and have to start functioning. Functioning universe. So that is called Karya Shakti. So it is in great detail discussed in chapter 2, but here also in 3-4 verses it is described. So we will go through that. 50 to 53 verses. Let's read.
Mataji, can I ask a question from the last section?
Yes, Prabhuji, please.
Mataji, this is regarding the verse number 22 and and the verse number 29 to 30. You referred an example of fragrance, right? Though the fragrance activates the awareness, and then it activates the buddhi, and then it activates the mind. So you say that the smile, we.
1 minute. I just gave that example. See how all these different elements work. The mind. Oh, he sees the expressions. The good or bad experiences. So intelligence discriminates it is good or bad. So that's how I just explained with an example how it works. Chitta, the smile came. And what? Chitta, mind, intelligence, and what was that? What 4 things I said?
That was only 3 we discussed.
Fragrance. The senses get those the knowledge. Like in this case, some nice smell.
But Mataji, when we say that when we say that after fragrance smile comes, so it is regarding the basic difference between chitta and mind, right? So in the Bhagavad Gita also,
second Prabhuji. So it all works together. It all works immediately. You get to know something is working, and I have this experience, so it's good. So I want it. So it all happens simultaneously, but everything has its own function. So
but every time we don't smile, right? So it's no, what I'm saying that before understanding that is it good or bad for me, how would I react? React on.
Okay, I'll tell you one example. My personal example, I'll tell you what does it, how it works. My Prabhuji, he does not like that poha so much. So when we go to temple, and if there's in the breakfast there's poha, he will take a plate and he will see poha. So because of his previous experience or previous taste, it's prasad, we should just accept it. That is another different thing, but I'm just telling how, looking something which we like, how our face expression change, how we anticipate, to eat that. And looking something which we don't like because of our previous experience, it was not of my liking, of my taste, or I need some juice with that, to get into my mouth. So that's what I mean to say, the smile or the face expression, From chitta, it comes the acceptance, or whatever, like that. So it all happens together. Intelligence says it's good, okay, you eat it, or it's not good, it discriminates, and then mind says, oh, because of previous impressions, it is acceptable or rejectable, whatever. So in that context, we use this example to just understand. Because it was there, the function of intelligence helps us to ascertain the nature of the object, when they come in front of us, or when they come in front of us means when the senses accept that. In this sense, in this case, the nose smells the fragrance of nice pakoras. So when that information comes, the function of intelligence helps us to guess that object. What is it? And then mind says, because of previous experience, it was good. So it was just an example.
Thank you so much.
Okay, which words we are in? Karya Shrishti. So
Should I read now?
Please read all these 4 verses, 50 to 53.
Text 50, when all these elements are unmixed, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of creation, along with time, work, and the qualities of the mode of material nature, entered into the universe with the total material energy in 7 divisions. Text 51. From these 7 principles arose into activity and united by the presence of the Lord, and an unintelligent egg arose, from which appeared the celebrated cosmic being. Text 52. This universal egg, or the universal universe in the shape of an egg, is called manifestation of material energy. Its layer of water, air, fire, sky, ego, and Mahat Tattva increase in thickness one after another. Each layer in 10 times bigger than the previous one, and the final outside layer is covered by the Pradhan. Within this egg is the universal form of Lord Hari, of whose body the 14 planetary systems are parts. Text 54.
That's it, Prabhuji, at the
Text
moment.
53.
Yeah. Boliye, Prabhuji.
Should I read text 53?
Yes.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Virat Purusha, situated himself in that golden egg which was lying on the water, and he divided it into many departments.
Yes.
Text 54.
Bas Prabhuji, iske baad next topic है creation of various limbs of the Virat Roop. So far we have seen that the Lord entered the universe as Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and all these elements was created, and this universal egg or universal form, and then inside that create 14 planetary systems, and Virat Purusha is situated there, and he divided it into many departments. That means again Thanam, alag living entities, and their different position in different planetary systems. So next 54 to 61 is the creation of various limbs. Various limbs of the Virat Roop means his mouth, his other organs, eyes, ears, and all. So if we go from 54 to 61, we see the creation of various limbs. So in understanding, first the gross sense organ comes, like mouth, and then the subtle sense organ comes, the speech, the Vani, and then the sense Devata comes. And in this way, all the gross sense organ, then subtle sense organ, the sense Devata. For all the Indriyas, the gross and the subtle. Gross Indriya and then the subtle Indriyas. Gross is like, mouth, nose, eyes, ears, and subtle, is like our Gyanendriya and Karmendriya, basically, not gross and subtle, but Gyanendriya and Karmendriya. So all this, first the gross sense organ, then the subtle sense organ, and the sense Devata. So following 54 to 61 verse, it just talks about one after another these comes. So we can quickly just go through it, read it. Translation from 54 to 61. Maybe you can go through it, I think. It is one after another. This table, let's read actually for 54. We should not leave. 54.
Text 54. First of all, a mouth appeared in him, and then came forth the organ of speech, and with it the god of fire, the deity who presides over that organ. Then a pair of nostrils appeared, and in them appeared the olfactory sense as well as pran, the vital air.
Correct.
Text 55.
Mouth came, then speech, then fire, and then the nostril, and then the grana, the subtle sense of smelling something, and then the the wind god, unke sense devta. Continue reading, Mataji, now. 55, 56 and all.
Text 55. In the wake of the olfactory sense came the wind god, who presides over that sense. Thereafter, a pair of eyes appeared in the universal form, and in them the sense of sight. In the wake of this sense came the sun god, who presides over it. Next, there appeared in him a pair of ears, and in them the auditory sense. And its wake, the dig devatas, or the deities who preside over the directions. Text 56. Then the universal form of the Lord, the Virat Purush, manifested his skin, and thereupon the hair, mustache, and beard appeared. After this, all the herbs and the drugs became manifested, and then his genitals also appeared. Text 57. After this semen, the faculty of procreation and the god who presides over the waters appeared. Next appeared an anus, and then the organs of defecation, and thereupon the god of death, who is feared throughout the universe. Text 58. Thereafter, the two hands of the universal form of the Lord became manifested, and with them the power of grasping and dropping things. And after that, Lord Indra appeared. Next, the legs became manifested, and with them the process of movement. And after that, Lord Vishnu appeared. Text 59. The veins of the universal body became manifested, and thereafter the red corpuscles or blood. In their wake came the rivers, the deities presiding over the veins, and then appeared in abdomen. Text 60. Next grew feelings of hunger and thirst, and in their wake came the manifestation of the oceans. Then a heart became manifest, and in the wake of the heart the mind appeared. Text 61. After the mind, the moon appeared. Intelligence appeared next, and after intelligence, Lord Brahma appeared. Then the false ego appeared, and then Lord Shiva. And after the appearance of Lord Shiva came the consciousness and the deity presiding over consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you very much. So the verse number 59 and 60 says an important point. This all creation we have seen. Important point, blood veins are compared to rivers. So the rivers in the various planets were also manifested. Controlling deity of rivers is the controlling deity of nervous system. So it is said in Ayurvedic treatment, those who are suffering from the disease of nervous instability are recommended to take bath in the flowing river. So Prabhupada says, if someone has nervous disorder, take river bath. And in the following verse, number 60, the ocean is considered to be presiding deity of abdomen. So if somebody has indigestion problems, take ocean bath. These two things are there. Apart from the gross sense, the subtle sense, and the sense devata, one after another is described. And after the mind, the moon appeared. Intelligence appeared next. After intelligence, Lord Brahma appeared. So here also is important. Mind, after the mind, the moon appeared. So it is written here, Prabhupada says, moon is the presiding deity of mind. Brahma appearing after intelligence is the presiding deity of intelligence. And Lord Shiva, who appears after false ego, is the presiding deity of false ego. So presiding deity basically is the controlling deities or devatas who takes care of its functioning, right? So presiding deity is Adi Devta, here. And in verse 62 to 72 now, further, it is said, now all these are created, Devtas attempt to wake up Virat Purusha. So one after another, every Devta wanted to wake up this Virat Purusha, but they failed. So what, after failing, after not able to do that, they entered Virat Rupa along with their subtle sense organ. So when the demigods and presiding deities of various senses were those manifested, they wanted to wake up their original appearance, but upon failing to do so, they re-entered the body of the Virat Rupa one after another in order to wake him. So they re-entered. That means the fire god entered his mouth along with his organ of speech. This is the example given here. So one after another, all of them, they re-entered the body to wake him up, but the Lord did not wake up. So ultimately, there are this series of verses. No tishchata tada virat, no duttishchata virat. Matlab, all the demigods tried one after another, but he was not getting up. He was not getting up. His god of wind entered the nostrils, but still the Virat Rupa refused to get awakened. His ears, the predominating deities of the directions entered through his ears, but still he did not get up. The god predominating over water entered his organ of generation, but the Virat Roop still would not rise, like that. The Virat Roop would not get up. And there are verses till 69, 70 verses. However, when the inner controller, the deity presiding over consciousness, entered the heart with reason, at that very moment, the cosmic being arose from the causal waters. So, all the sense devatas, we see from verse number 62 to 69, all the sense devatas, they tried their best but could not wake up the Virat Purusha. So this is to show that even though so many great personalities here are residing within the body, who is the controlling personality for different things, but they cannot wake up the body. So who then in 78th verse it is said, when the Shretragya Chittena Hridayam Chetya Shretagya Pravishad Yada, at that time, Virat Tathaiva Purusha Salilat Uttishtata. So when this Shretagya Antaryami or the Virat of this Virat Purusha, when Vasudev entered along with the subtle organ Chitta, then he entered the abode of heart, then Virat Purusha Salila Uttishtata. Only then the Virat Purusha woke up. So an analogy is given here to understand this concept is in 71st verse it says Yatha Pran Indriya Manodhya. Four things, Pran Indriya Manodhya. So just as the Pran, the senses, the mind and the intelligence, by their own strength, na utthapiyutam ojasa. By their own strength, they cannot awaken a sleeping person without the intervention of the Supreme Lord. So how important is this, the presence of the Supreme Lord? Just like the Pran, senses, mind and intelligence, by their own strength, na utthapyutum prabhavanti, cannot awaken a sleeping person without the intervention of the Supreme Lord. If the Supreme Lord doesn't sanction, it means that. If the Supreme Lord doesn't sanction, they cannot wake up a sleeping person. If the Supreme Lord doesn't sanction, the senses, the mind, the intelligence or prana, pranendriya manodhya, yatha prasuptam purusham pranendriya manodhya prabhavanti vina yena na tutpayitum ojasa. If the Supreme Lord doesn't sanction, the senses, mind, intelligence or a prana, by their own potency, cannot wake up a sleeping person. So when a man is sleeping, all his material assets, namely the prana, the senses of working or the knowledge, acquiring sense, the mind and the intelligence cannot arouse him. He can be aroused only when the super soul helps him. So similarly, the universal form also does not wake up without the sanction of Vasudev. Vasudev entered and he made the universal function. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says an example of individual body is given here to illustrate this condition of Virat Rupa. So ultimately for us, Kapila Dev started this description by mentioning the goal of Sankhya is to understand and to take shelter to the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. The explanation of Sankhya philosophy is described here in detail in the sense that the Virat Purusha or the universal form of the Supreme Lord is the original source of all various sense organs and their presiding deities. Therefore, we say, na, hamari palak bhi jhapak rahe, so there is one sense devta for that, If he stops giving the instruction, then we cannot do anything, any action in our body also. So, all this, all the senses and their sense devta, So he is the Supreme Personality of God is the original source of everything. It is not possible to arouse the Virat Purusha or to link with the Supreme Lord without devotional practice, without trying to establish relationship with him or without performing. So only by devotional service and detachment can one perform the process of linking with the Absolute. So this last 72 verse says that Tasmin Pratyak Atmanam Dhiya Yoga Pravrittaya Bhaktaya Viraktya Jnanena Vichi Vivicyatmani chintayet, Vivichya, considering carefully, Atmani chintayet. So one should contemplate very carefully. Through devotion, detachment, and advancement in spiritual knowledge acquired through concentrated devotional service, one should contemplate that super soul as present in this very body, although simultaneously apart from it. So purpose of all this description of material elements, its characteristics, its functions of Sankhya is to inspire one to meditate on the Supreme Lord with Ananya Bhakti, undeviated, uninterrupted. If one accepts and hears them with faith and eagerness, then it naturally leads to unmotivated devotional service. Although sitting in the same body as individual souls, the super soul is sitting here, but it has no affection for the body. In the sense, body is material. We as an individual soul has attraction and affection for this material body, but super soul has no affection for this body, whereas the individual soul does. So one has to detach himself from this material body by discharging devotional service. That's what is the conclusion. The purpose of Sankhya is to detach oneself from material contamination. And how it can be achieved? By devotional practice to the Supreme Lord. And when one is detached from this attraction, one can actually concentrate on his mind, and he can engage his mind on the Supreme Lord. And one who is freed from this material contamination is joyful and can enter into devotional service and can be liberated. And he is joyful. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhaktir. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhaktir ahetuki. What is that word? Prasanna manaso. By doing this devotional practice, he becomes joyfully happy. And at last, Prabhupada says the analytical study of the elements of material nature and the concentration of mind upon the Supreme Lord are the sum and substance of Sankhya philosophical system. So it should culminate. The perfection of understanding all these things is to do devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And if one understands all these things, then actually sense gratification or material attachment and our spiritual advancement, they cannot go together. So we have to understand this. So we have to get detached from all these material things. Then slowly, the more we get detached, the more we can attach or serve in a right perspective in devotional practices. So if one understands the nature of these material elements and understands that these material elements basically have no capacity to satisfy the soul, whatever it is. Aap ek poor ho ya ek amir ho, you have all the facilities or you don't have any facilities, In any case, this will not satisfy the soul. It may satisfy your senses. If you have good intelligence, your PhD, it may satisfy your intelligence. If you have good facilities, it may satisfy your senses, different kinds of senses, but nothing has the potency to satisfy the soul. We can use these material elements to engage in Lord's service, and that way we can, satisfy the soul. But otherwise, these material elements have no capacity. So when we understand this, by understanding the nature of material elements, then we don't seek enjoyment in the matter. Then we take devotional practices seriously. So that is the benefit or the goal of understanding this Sankhya, gives us the foundation that how we are actually the spirit soul, and we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and we are not this body. So we have to engage accordingly, where we have to put our time and energy. So this is the understanding. So this chapter talks about all the fundamental principles of material nature, material elements. And next chapter we start next time. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Kapil Dev ki jai. Hare Krishna. Dandas pranam everyone. So thank you. This is very technical topic. The next one also understanding material nature. And then the next topic, here it comes, all the Ashtanga Yoga and different limbs of Jnana and other things, And then Next chapter 28, Lord Kapila's instruction on execution of devotional service. Then Bhakti.
Mataji?
Yes, sir.
Mataji, in verse 10 or 11, I don't remember, it is mentioned that there are 5 gross elements, 5 subtle, and 4 internal senses. Now,
Yes.
I just want to know which are the 5 subtle and 4 internal.
Okay. So somebody would like to answer? It is answer is given there only, isliye I'm asking. In 13th verse, in what Prabhuji said is 11th verse. So what is this 5, 5, 4, and 10? Total 24. Somebody can answer. It is given in the next verses only. Yes, Radha Keshav Prabhuji, आपने पूछा क्या?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, so somebody can answer. Who will answer? The answer is given in the next verses, 12, 13, 14.
Shall I read, Mataji?
Yes, please.
There are 5 gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. There are also 5 subtle elements, smell, taste, color, touch, and sound. The senses.
No, gross is all right, knowledge is also all right, working is all right.
Yeah.
The thing is 5 subtle, which are 5 subtle and which are 4 internal.
5 subtle I have read.
Yeah, 5 subtle, Mataji, they just read.
And 4 internal are, I was about to read, the internal subtle senses are experienced as having 4 aspects in the shape of mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness.
Yes, Prabhuji. So you got it. The 5 gross elements are earth, water, air, fire, ether. The 5 subtle elements are smell, taste, color, touch, and sound. And the 4 internal senses, Chatur, is mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. That here means 4 antakaran, which is said here, buddhi, ahankar, man, and chitta. So man, buddhi, ahankar, and chitta, these are 4 antakaran, and then 10. So 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses.
Now the next question is,
Yeah.
Ahankar comes when it is
Yeah, sorry.
It is Mahatattva. In Mahatattva, Ahankar is created, not in Pradhan.
So what, Prabhuji? It is all created one by one from that Pradhan.
Yeah. One by one.
Yeah. What is the question then?
I am a bit confused that Ahankar is there in Pradhan or not.
It is there.
It is there.
But not yet manifested. Slowly, one after another, things will get manifested. Everything is there in Pradhan.
If everything is there in Pradhan, then why there is no discussion of soul?
Because right now we are discussing about the elements.
No, that is true. We are discussing the elements, but the soul part is also there, and why that has not been discussed. Only 24 are there when we are talking about it. Soul is also there. Why not 25 elements are then?
The jiva
manifestation comes. You see, Mahatattva is further expansion of Pradhan.
Yes.
Isn't it? And
yes.
Soul is always there. Right?
Yes.
Why soul part has been taken away in this discussion?
That we have to ask Kapil there. The point is, Prabhuji, the soul is always there in this form. And when these elements are created, then only the soul will get the body. Right now, the soul is there. The jiva, every living entity, might be an ant or a human being or a tree or whatever, they get body after the elements are created. The seed is given to the farmer. And then the farmer cultivates it properly. He tills the land and then puts the seeds and then water and sunlight.
That is understandable. That is understandable. My question again is that there are 24 elements mentioned here. And the 25th element is time.
Yes.
26th element is Paramatma.
The Supreme Lord is said, yes.
Yeah. Supreme Lord is there in the form of Paramatma. That is 26th.
Yes.
Where lies the soul?
Somewhere we read also that some philosophers also, soul is also there, Prabhuji. It's not that they are not there. So some philosophers say,
not specifically mentioned, Ahankar is a part of soul. No doubt about it. Me. Let me say me. It is Ahankar. Because me, Ahankar, has two parts. One is a transcendental part and other is a material part. So none of these have been discussed here.
the living entity is there, Rose.
That is true. That is true. But it has not been specifically discussed. Because you see, Sankhya philosophy discusses about 24 elements. That's all.
No, the 24 elements plus the time, and then 24 elements plus the time makes it 25, and then the super soul makes it 26. It is given in verse number 18. And some philosophers say total 28 elements, including 27th as the living entity and 28th also, no? So super soul and then this whole element, all those things are there. It is not discussed, yeah, because it is the description of all the the elements of material nature.
No, Mataji, there are so many philosophers. Some philosophers take this as 24, some take as 26, some take as 27, some take as 28.
Yes.
That is true. But it starts from 24. It means that some philosophers don't try to discuss or take into consideration time, Paramatma, and something else. Because the only thing is that 24 elements, when we discuss, they try to distinguish between the material and spiritual elements. So when we say we are not part of this 24 elements, it means that we are soul and we have nothing to do with this material things, and we get detached from this. That is the purpose.
That is right. We are soul. We have nothing to do with this material world. But we all this also discuss because of our desire. We are sent here, and we are identifying with these material elements, and that's how we are getting entrapped.
Yeah.
Okay, so Prabhuji, can you show your video, if possible? And any other question, if anybody has, otherwise our time is up. And if there's any other question, we can take it later on.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you.
Yeah, your video on, Prabhuji, then it makes sense, or to see. Okay. So we end here and continue over 27, 28, 29, 3 chapters are left and 2 days left. I think Friday evening, right, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji.
And then Sunday morning. So 2. So probably next class we will take 2 chapters because those are small chapters. So 27 and 28 we will cover on Friday, and then 29 chapter, which is explanation of devotional service, we will take on Sunday. That is my plan.
But one thing more. Please touch one more thing. In this chapter, it has been said that Virat Purusha didn't activate itself because of this. So many efforts were there. Now, Prabhupada has said that this Virat Roop is material. Somewhere it is even said it is spiritual, it is transcendental. So please throw light on this as well.
Prabhuji, can you
In the
bring,
next chapter.
can
In the
you,
next.
can you- next time can you bring that line where it is read, where it is written Virat Purush is spiritual?
Okay. ठीक है. I'll
Okay.
give it. I'll
Yes.
give it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you give me the context,
Yeah,
then
yeah. Sure,
makes sense
sure.
to know what that
Okay.
means there. You know?
Okay.
And
I'll send
Prabhuji,
you.
Prabhuji, you can please give me. I'll forward to Mataji.
Yes.
Okay, okay, Mataji. Okay.
Yes,
Whatever.
Prabhuji, can you please switch on your video? Mataji wants to. Can you please switch on your video?
Yes, I want to see you, Prabhuji.
किसके साथ है केशव प्रभु जी?
Okay, Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Shri Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Dandas Pranam everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji.